1 o'clock and I'll call the Board of Supervisors into session for our meeting today of Thursday, February 4th, 2021. It's 1 o'clock. And the first thing on our item is a canvass of the City of Dubuque Ward 1 special election primary. And I will turn it over to Jenny Hillary to begin the process.
Okay, so I delivered to Ann's house all of the tally books for the precincts, including the absentees. So she's just yep, there they are. So she is going to read them into the record for us then to make it all official.
Okay, everyone hold your breath. Here we go. This is the special election for the City of Dubuque. The first precinct is Rockdale Methodist Church. Total count was 197. Results: John Pregler, 66, Susan Farber, 105, Nicole Weber, 25, and there was one write-in. Precinct number 2 was the Tri-State Blind Society. Total count 202. John Pregler, 64, Susan Farber, 106, Nicole Weber, 32, no write-ins. Precinct number 3, St. Peter Lutheran Church. Total count 44, John Pregler, 13, Susan Farber, 24, Nicole Weber, 7, no write-ins. Precinct number 4, the Fairgrounds. Total count 72, John Pregler, 20, Susan Farber, 38, Nicole Weber, 14, no write-ins. Precinct number 5, Summit Congregational Church. Count 106. Pregler, 42, Susan Farber, 49, Nicole Weber, 14, one write-in. Last are the absentee ballots. We had total count 341, John Pregler, 148, Susan Farber, 184, Nicole Weber, 9, and that, I believe, concludes the canvass. We have documents we all will need to sign, all 3 supervisors, but we will do that soon after this meeting concludes. Jenny, is there anything else you need me to do?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, very good. So thank you for bringing this to me. I appreciate it greatly. And now we will turn the supervisors meeting over to Stella Rundy, our budget director.
Good afternoon, everyone. So on our budget work session today, we have a couple of follow-ups from the Sheriff Department on their capital requests, and then from the IT Department on their capital requests. And then we have a new personnel improvement request from the County Recorder. The Facilities Maintenance Department will do their presentation. The HR Department will do their presentation. And then I have a short recap on the Operation New View unwinding. Give an update on that. So that's our agenda for today. I am looking, yep, I see Sheriff Kennedy on the call. And let's see if he can get unmuted.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Oh, yep, you're on the phone. All right, wonderful. So I will project up your capital projects in the packet and then turn it over to you.
Okay.
Kim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask for a quick break. My neighbor just tried to call. Generally, when they call, he fell out of his wheelchair, so I just need to call up there and make sure he's okay.
Looking for a motion to recess.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
I will
Just
second
be a
that.
couple minutes. Thank you.
All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
aye. We are in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Everything okay, Harley? Do you need to
Yep.
take a longer break? Or are we good?
Nope, we're good. We're good.
Okay. we'll
Sorry
just
about
count-
that.
No, absolutely. Thank you for being there for your neighbor. It's pretty amazing. So we'll let the clock run a little bit longer for our 5 minutes to a few more minutes. So, and we'll be right back.
Supervisor Wickham and Potoff, I sent you both an email of a slightly higher priority. If you would be able to check it and multitask during the meeting, that would be fantastic. Supervisor McDonough, I sent you an email as well. If you have an opportunity during this meeting to check it and respond, I would greatly appreciate it.
Probably can take care of this at our next recess, I would think, pretty easily, don't you think? All right. Has it been 5 minutes? I think so. I'll call us back into session. And I think we're going to go to Sheriff Kennedy.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll just start off touching on the electrical request here. As you may recall, when we went to the Board of Supervisors presentation last week, we presented this as a possible improvement by upgrading the lighting from fluorescent to LED. The information that we received from Crescent Electric for the individual buildings was going to be a 9.8 year return on investment for building 770 and a 10.8 year return on investment for the 855 building. So one of the things that we wanted to do, and because we understand that, number one, this is a large cost, and and it's possible that the county doesn't see the savings on the payback. Couple of things to keep in mind, like number one, when they do these, when Crescent gave us these bids, I don't know if they accounted for the fact that some of these, well, probably a third to half of the lights in the building are on 24/7. So that's, in my mind, that would be extra savings if that's not accounted for. I don't know if it is or not. But the one thing we did do, just so we have an independent view on this project, Alliant does what's called an energy audit, and they do it for commercial sized buildings. So we reached out to Alliant, and we are trying to get them to come in and do an energy audit, because one of the things that they do in the energy audit is they give you different ideas on how to reduce your overall electrical costs. So I don't know as far as this project goes. I mean, I don't really have any more information for you other than that we requested this energy audit. It has not been completed. Obviously, it was only a week ago, and we just sent in for this. I think was it Friday? Yeah, we just sent in for it on Friday. So I don't know when we're going to have an answer on that. So it may be a project that needs to get pushed off till next year if you're not comfortable taking the bite out of it. And just as a side note, this was a project that was intended to be partially completed this fiscal year, and then the remainder was suggested to be completed in FY23. So it was going to be a 2-year project anyway. So it's something that we could push it back to 23, 24 if you are more comfortable. Once we get updated information, we just, like I said, it was just something that we thought that we could do to try to be a little bit more green and reduce our carbon footprint down here. So, any other questions on that?
Well, Sheriff, I appreciate that you want to be sure that this is the direction we want to go and that this is the best product and the best vendor. I think that's, I'm not suggesting you weren't already on that path, but that we want to take a minute to make sure. I mean, the total cost is, $375,000. So,
Right.
I'm not quick to spend that money unless we're certain that we've got all of our things discovered. So I think it's a good plan.
Okay, and like I said, that's fine. And if the rest of the board agrees, then it's something that we can definitely take back to the drawing board and just make sure we have all of our ducks in a row, and make sure that the county's really going to be getting the value and savings that was originally projected.
Joe, is that the total cost, or is that just county cost? I think you said something last time the city would pay some of that, or?
Right. So this is the total cost. So as for anyone who's on the meeting who's not aware, maintenance in this building is, when it comes to the structural maintenance of the building, is a shared cost with the city of Dubuque, because the city police department occupies some space here. Because we have the jail, we have the bulk of the space, but it's divided up on a cost share by square footage of who uses what. And that cost share is 70.7% paid for by the county and 29.3% paid for by the city. So there would be on both of these, out of the 112,000 and the 253,000, there'd be a 29.3% payback from the city.
I'm comfortable waiting until you get all your final information together. And if the savings are going to be sufficient that we want to look at this mid-year, I'm not opposed to that either, because I would prioritize that piece of it and the green savings of it. I think that's value added to our citizens as well. So, but very good. I look forward to the rest of the information. Unless someone's looking to make a motion on this, I suggest we move to the next piece.
Okay. I think the next piece we're going to touch on is going to be the roof. I know part of the discussion the other day had to do with the roof, how much life is actually left on it, and how many issues we've been having. I have Jay Gonzalez here, so obviously you're welcome to ask him any questions here. But Jay had provided me some documentation. In the last little over 4 years, we've had 8 repair jobs done on the roof. In 2019, they actually repaired multiple tears in the roof. And then we currently, in 2021, we have an existing leak over housing unit number 2 in the middle of the roof, and no one's been able to locate the source of that leak yet. So as you can see, I mean, we have been having issues over the last 4 years, and we've been trying to make this work. But we believe that we are truly at end of life for the product, and it is in need of replacement. Jay, do you have?
Just pretty much what Sheriff Kennedy had said. We have leaks, especially in the year 2019, there was about 6 to 8 rips up on the roof that were patched. So it seems like it's after winter, we're probably going to have another probably 5 to 6 more tears up there on the roof, I would assume.
My assumption would be just because, we get into weeks like we have projected for the next 9 days where you get the bitter cold, that's hard on outdoor products. And with this roof being rubber seal, my guess would be that it, it gets in a state of near frozen, and then, something happens and it develops cracks and tears. So, the roof has served us well for almost 19 years, but we do think that this is something that needs to get done this year.
Jay or Sheriff Kennedy, do you anticipate that this would be a local contractor that would complete this project?
That would be my guess, Jay. The bids we got were from was it Geisler or Geisler? We're from Geisler Brothers, so we would anticipate that probably somebody like them would be the ones who did it. Obviously, with the cost, it's something that we would probably have to go out for RFP for, but we would anticipate that it being someone local.
Okay, thank you.
Would the city share any of the cost on that, Joe, or is that just county?
No, that would be a cost share also.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to improve the roof replacement for $185,000 estimate in fiscal year 22.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the replacement expense of $185,000 for the jail roof. All in favor signify aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. And so the last thing we're going to talk about is the personnel improvement request that we made. Stella wants to scroll up there. And this was the proposition to add staff to our road patrol, and then the backfill to those road patrol would be filled by civilian corrections officers in the jail. The corrections officers would be, because we currently have 2 part-time corrections officers, and we have positions we have 1 part-time position available, and we have $75,000 in that line. It was our intention to eliminate the part-time corrections positions, and instead of backfilling the 5 road patrol with 5 corrections, just backfilling with 7 full-time people, and or 7 full-time corrections officers, and those 7 full-time corrections officers would actually be at a lower cost to the county than if we were to backfill with 5 full-time deputies. So, so I know Stella did some numbers for us for the 5-year total cost, and I guess I'll let Stella, if you want to talk about the numbers that you came up with.
Sure. So we took the salary and benefit estimate of $80,884 per correctional officer. And so in year 1, Kennedy is asking for 3 correctional officers, and then to add 1 per year for the next 4 years after. So the total salary and benefit cost, you can see towards the middle of the page, was $242,653 for year 1. And then we have some savings for eliminating those 3 part-time positions. So $77,000. And then the cost of moving in moving one deputy to the road, we would need to purchase another vehicle. And so that's the cost of the vehicle. And then I believe you said forfeiture funds, or there was another source for the equipment. So
Yeah,
I just-
forfeiture.
Forfeiture.
Equipment.
Yep. So in year one, the cost would be $203,000 to add those 3 correctional officers, move one deputy to the road, and buy a car to staff. And so then each year, you know, we layer in one more correctional officer to get up to that full 7 correctional officer request. And then I've built in a 3% estimated cost increase each year to salaries, to that part-time position, and also to the cost of the vehicle. So you can see.
Right. The way I like to look at this is, I think it's one reason we asked you to come back, at least some of my questions have been, where there's 2 things at play here. One is the corrections officer piece and getting that correct. Obviously, there's a cost to that. You're having difficulty in getting the corrections officers staffed right. And then there's also the piece about getting more road patrol. So I see them as 2 things. They impact your budget, obviously, at the same time, but that's how I'm trying to make sense of it when I'm, you know, addressing citizens about what you're asking for. You know, I indicated I generally like this idea that you need more road patrol. I'm in favor of all that, but I wouldn't be today prepared to say I'm making a budget decision that's going to go for the next 5 years. I would like to look at this budget time and the scenario that's being presented to us today to see if that helps your department and then helps citizens as well. So, you know, I don't know anyone who wants to vote today on a $1.9 million project. I don't. But if I took anybody's improvements today and put them out over 5 years, you know, we just did conservation, a $1.5 million improvement package there. I think we really just need to be focused on, obviously, these are full-time employees that are county employees, and they come with their benefit package, and I'm good with that. But that helps me make more sense of this. And I don't know, Joe, if that's a deal breaker for you. If it's like, no, it's got to be all this, or is it, can we be looking at this scenario on a repeated basis as we look at adding people to corrections officers and road patrol? I don't think they cancel each other out, do they?
No, not necessarily. But so just so you're aware, the reason, or the way we came up with 5 as being the number, as we talked about in the last meeting, when you look at national standards, we're far behind where we should be, and in order to get to national standards, we would nearly have to double our road patrol, which is definitely not feasible and definitely not responsible on anybody's part. But the way we got the number 5 is that we when the sheriff's office added 1 deputy to the road back in like 2007, 2008, having just 1 person added to the schedule completely messed up the scheduling, messed up, because at that time they said we would add 1 road patrol officer, but we're going to guarantee there's a minimum of 4 people on the road on second shift. Well, every 8 days you could only schedule, the way our schedule works, you could only schedule 4 people every 8 days because of the way the rotation went. So that meant no one could use vacation, no one could go to training. You know, it really handcuffed the shift at the time for doing anything outside of just working. You couldn't do anything to better the officer. So in order to make that even out, we have to add, so second shift already has 1 extra. We need to add a second person, or a second one to second shift, and we need to add 2 to the other shifts, so that because ultimately what we would like is for 4 people to be out there all the time. But until we get, the only way we can do that is by adding 2 extra bodies. And so that's how we came to that number. And so, I mean, the only, I guess, caveat to that would be if the board wants to, agree to something smaller than that, that's fine, but I can't at that time guarantee that there's going to be 4 people out on the shift every shift. And so that really doesn't solve our issue of having more people out on the road.
Sheriff Kennedy, this is Supervisor Wickham. Just for my high level, so if we did approve fiscal year 22 with the 3 correctional officers, those 3 correctional officers would go into the jail, and then 3 deputy sheriffs that are potentially working in the jail right now would go to road patrol. Is that a fair and easy assessment?
I guess it depends on how you were. If you're talking about eliminating the part-time, then, I guess we looked at it like 1 would be able to come out on the road because we're giving up.
Okay, the part-time's a component. Thank you. That helps. I knew I was missing something. So I understand that, but at least 1. And so maybe my follow-up question would be well, let me make a statement first. I love that we're showing 5 years and you've got the plan laid out for us so that this board and future boards can kind of see what you're attempting to do and know what's ahead of us and generally the staffing levels you're looking at. So that's very good for planning. My question would be if we approve, and that's the only thing we have today in front of us, fiscal year 22 with the 3 correctional officers, and then some reductions in that part-time. If that was the only thing that was approved in the next 5 years, would that be a benefit? I'm not proposing that's what we should be, but would that be a benefit?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said anything that we did wouldn't help. If we approved the 3 corrections officers and we just moved 1 person out on the road, likely what we would probably do is move the person to 3rd shift because 3rd shift is really the most understaffed. 3rd shift is really the only shift that rarely has assistance from other agencies. And I guess I don't want to make it sound like the other agencies don't help, but Farley and Epworth, they have police departments. A lot of times, most nights, they don't have somebody on that can assist us with calls. Cascade, a lot of nights they don't have somebody on that can assist 3rd shift with calls. The only 2 agencies that we can guarantee on a nightly basis can assist us with calls are the Dubuque Police Department and the Dyersville Police Department. And even the State Patrol is off the road most of the night. So I mean, it would be helpful to have an extra person out there. But again, I mean, the goal of this was to have, basically 1 extra person guaranteed per shift every night. And by adding 1 person, I can't really make that guarantee.
So should we be starting with year number 2 being our focus of discussion then? Is really year 2 where we need to begin this? How does that change your staffing?
Well, that would bring, I guess it depended on how we chose to do it. Yeah, I guess I don't know, because that would add 2 extra people, but it still doesn't put me in a position where I can, unless we put that person then on 2nd shift. I mean, then we could essentially make sure that there's 4 people out.
Only on that shift.
But yeah, only on that shift. And I mean, 2nd shift is really the busiest shift for the most part, but I mean, Asbury usually has 2 guys on during that time. You know, Piazza usually has somebody on during that time. So I mean, there's and the state troopers are out. So I mean, they have help there also.
Joe, this is Harley.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you wouldn't be able to guarantee the 4 people out until after year 5 anyway, right? Until you got all your staffing out on.
You wouldn't be, yeah, you wouldn't be able to guarantee on all shifts 4 people out.
Right.
The only thing you'd be able to say is, we would, I guess my original goal was to bring the first person out in year 1, put them on 3rd shift, year 2, first shift, year 3, give second shift their extra body. And then starting in year 3, we would start tracking, the calls for service, the number of days we're at minimum staffing, and go from there. And then year 4, we'd start tracking that on 3rd shift, and then year 5, we'd start tracking that on 1st shift. Once all the shifts were stacked up, then we would have better data on what the scheduling does and what the minimums need to be. So.
Well, maybe to break it down to simple, I'm not sure if Stella or the Sheriff's Department or both of you created this spreadsheet, but in front of us today, if it's fiscal year 22 and that's in front of us, I am supportive of that number and that increase, because that's all that we have to decide on. And then I would generally be supportive of the ensuing 4 years as they play out. So if that's what you're asking us to approve, I'm with you.
Okay, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I guess obviously, when we came up with this project, we knew it wasn't something we could dump on the county all in 1 year. Number one, we understand that adding all these people in 1 year, given our recruiting efforts and things like that, would, number one, probably be impossible for us to add this many staff in a year. And number two, we understand that it would be a huge burden on the county, and we want to do this. The reason we chose incrementally was to reduce the burden on the county in any single year. So, but I understand, that we're here to talk about, FY22, if this is something that we can, get approved for FY22 and then just kind of continue to reevaluate as we go forward. Obviously we're willing to work with you in any way possible to try to help our manpower situation, but also be respectful of the taxpayers.
I think there's been something significant accomplished here, Sheriff Kennedy, that we are, I think, generally understanding what you want to do, and no opposition to the idea of having correctional officers on a full-time basis. I think that's a significant change from your department's perspective. Supervisors, I think, appear to be okay with that. But I wouldn't want to say that in year 3 that there wouldn't be other people looking at this, and you've done budgeting a lot longer than me. So we'll take each fiscal year kind of as it comes, with an understanding we need to get you more road patrol. And to do that is a way to, you'll probably need to refresh us, but you need to add correctional officers because it gives you more deputies available.
No, totally understand that. Just, just so, everyone is aware, the people that are listening are aware, and why it's important to have one extra person working each shift. Most of our calls, if say we have a domestic assault, that ties up 2 of our officers. And right now we currently have a 3-person minimum on the shifts. So the other officer that's free is generally instructed to move to the central part of the county. And they're essentially, unless there's some very egregious crime happening in front of them, they are not supposed to do anything unless they get a call. So it really takes away from the overall security of the county when we have two people sitting at one residence and dealing with a situation, or at a major accident dealing with a situation. And we have another officer that we basically are telling him, don't get tied up in anything because you might need to be available to respond to the next call. This way, with two extra, or with an extra body out there, you know, that allows us to handle two significant calls at one time. I mean, even if you, like, even on, usually it's second or third shift, but if there's an alarm at a house and we have to search a house, we have to have two officers to do that for officer safety.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of things that they do, I mean, traffic stops, you never know what you're going to come across on there. Most of the time we can do it with one deputy, but you know, if we have somebody that's intoxicated or has drugs on them or has a warrant or anything else, you know, we need a second officer, and we need to have that person available to respond. And if people are on calls, if they're on an accident, if they're on a domestic or something else, they can't really leave to go assist.
Well, we only have fiscal year 22 in front of us. So if this is the way we want to proceed, 22 can move forward, and maybe next year you'll come back and you'll have skipped stage 2 and you'll be asking us to fund, you know, a different part of your program. You'll have something to take up. So I don't sense in this board any I don't sense any pushback in where you want to go. So we just have to make
Okay.
it fit the budgets.
No,
You know?
I get it.
Harley, do you have anything you want to add that we're missing perspective or something?
Well, just for transparency, my son is a deputy in the jail, and this obviously could affect him. I'm generally in support of it because of the public safety, and obviously I'm aware of the road patrol issues with the domestics, serious crashes, and you know, the inability to do anything when you have people tied up on domestics or serious accidents. But I just wanted to make it clear that the plan could affect my son, so I don't know that I should probably vote on it. I'm not sure.
I don't think you have a clear conflict of interest. I appreciate that, but I think, you know, I would like to encourage you to vote on this. Only you can decide that, but it doesn't go directly to his financial gain, I don't think, but thank you for the context. So do we have other questions, or go ahead?
Maybe I'll just weigh in real quick on your comment, Harley. So this is the third time, maybe in the third meeting, that one of the supervisors has said they're going to potentially abstain from a vote. I would highly discourage that. You know, we obviously have direct conflict of interest related to personal gain, or, you know, companies we would own or properties we would own. But, you know, Dubuque is still a small town, and I'm very proud that your son is part of the force, and I'm very excited that, you know, there's another piece of parcel that might have a Pothop name, and there's another piece of parcel that might be tied to Supervisor McDonough, and ultimately there might be one tied to Supervisor Wickham. But if we each choose to abstain on that, I don't think we're fulfilling our duties properly. And I have all the trust in both Supervisor Potoff and McDonough to make the right choice for the county. And I would never indicate that you'd be doing anything for gain. But that's my quick 2 cents on that. But that all said, I will make a motion for fiscal year 22 to approve the salary and benefit increase presented in fiscal 22 of $242,000, along with the cost of a new vehicle without equipment for $38,000.
It'd be for 203,000, right?
I wasn't sure how they do the savings stuff, so I just listed the total sums of the two non-negative numbers.
I'll second the motion to move it on to further discussion, so we are sure that we get it the way it needs to be. Does that make sense? So let's go back to discussion and make sure we've got the motion that Stella needs, that the sheriff needs to be clear.
I would agree with that motion because I will need to include the full salary and benefits into the budget. So this is a savings that we'll recognize, but I do need this amount budgeted and also this amount budgeted.
Okay,
Do we have any other questions or discussion?
no,
We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel improvement to the budget for fiscal year 22 before us for a total increase in cost of $242,653.08. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
you,
Do you have
everyone.
do you have anything else before us?
No, I just want to tell everybody thank you for understanding our situation and for helping us look toward the future. And I understand everything's going to be on a year-to-year basis moving forward, and we'll just play it by ear going forward. And thank you to Stella for helping put these numbers together. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Sheriff. Okay, so stop share. So the next item on our agenda would be the IT capital request follow-up. So I see Nathan on. So I will go ahead and turn it over to him to lead the discussion.
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon, Nathan.
Hi, Nathan. You always get the vote for best picture background.
I have hundreds and hundreds of new pictures. They are being updated. I just haven't done the Zoom one yet.
Very good.
Stella, did you want to run it, or did you want to allow me to share?
Sorry,
Either
I
is
was
fine.
Go ahead if you have, if you're a host, go ahead.
Okay, I am now. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I asked Stella if I could come back in this budget cycle. I'm hoping to, of any direction, if any, and further answer questions, if any exist, on some of the capital projects. So for the fiber, this is one of those situations where it's not going to go away, whether we choose to start making progress on some of these pain points this year or next year. It's not going to go away. This is a need that we have, and particularly with like the INET, eventually that's going to go away in some form or another, and then we will have some sort of reoccurring cost, whether that's pouring capital money into it to get our own fiber there, or we cut the check like we do with other locations. The other locations that I have identified, I picked them for two reasons. One, they are achievable. Like, these are things that we can actually do. This is not, the Nature Center or Mud Lake or Farley, which is, years away before we could get our own infrastructure out that far. But these are close and these are achievable, and there's infrastructure that we can partner with to reach these locations. The users that we support do not have as good of service at these locations as the ones that are serviced by the direct fiber locations, and that matters to me. I understand budgets. I understand not everyone is going to be equal in the county, just the logistics of being a county versus a city, but user satisfaction and their experiences, that matters to me, and how IT supports them. So I would like to, if there are questions, some form of this, whether it's all approved with specific instructions, whether it's partially approved with targeted locations. And again, let me reiterate, you could approve all of this, and I'm obviously not going to just come back a year later and say, hey, good, we got fiber everywhere. Here's all the contracts. That, of course, would not happen. Hypothetically, if the board approved this, step one would be to formally ask CJ to review this. He has a copy of it, but I asked him, don't spend any time on it yet until I see, how it goes with the Board of Supervisors. Have him review it and then return this when ready for Board of Supervisors to sign, Dubuque City Council to sign, which will then get us into the agreement. The agreement is then finished. That does not commit us to anything. That just gives us the framework to where we can then talk about locations and get more specifics. And the nice thing about that is that if we do get the agreement done, if there are additional locations, and I'm not saying you're adding any, I'm saying if there are, I then have a tool that I can early in that process get an idea of what costs would be using direct fiber versus using, a whole nother technology stack with an internet provider and a firewall and, all of that accoutrement that goes with it.
Nathan, can you go to slide 5?
Yes.
Was an updated, and there we go.
Yes. This is an updated version of what I originally put in the budgets, in the original one. I took the conduit out. I mean, obviously conduit's still an option, but I replaced it, just focused on fiber to make it a little bit easier, because realistically, there's only one location that I would foresee us really doing conduit, and that would be the EOC. And I would encourage the board to just put EOC high on the priority list, but don't get too focused on that we're going to get one strand of fiber and be done. We might do that if that is the best result, but I see EOC being a larger conversation with partners to get multiple entities out there in a satisfactory manner, some sort of arrangement. Sunnycrest, if we can get 10 gig fiber, a pair between us and them, we'll be good for a very long time. I mean, we're not going to outgrow that pair of fiber through the city. They'll be excellent shape for 20 years if we can achieve that.
I support beginning this. I think we should, it seems like the Sunnycrest one to me looks like it's an apparent way to begin. I'd like to explore that permanent agreement that you're describing. You and I've talked offline a little bit about costs and of fiber costs and the leasing costs that, I know you're going to do a little bit more checking maybe to see, but that, so we have a better confirmation that that's going to create a very, very nice package and $1.08 per linear foot from the cities. At this point, that's their express lease cost. So I think the Sunnycrest is something we should begin. I'm not opposed to EOC, but it sounds like that's going to take probably looking at more partnerships and other variables. Sunnycrest doesn't have as many variables. It's our property. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to change much. And it seems like getting good service there and getting a good connection meets our goals. I'm interested in my colleagues' feedback on that, but I would be prepared to support the Sunnycrest improvement.
Nathan, on the EOC, that would run out like Chavanel. I mean, obviously there's fiber out there already somewhere, right?
Well, the challenge is whose fiber is it and whose conduit is it? There's fiber all over the county, but the question is who owns it? And is there excess capacity in the conduit that the fiber's in, and are they open to allowing others to use their conduit? Most private sector entities, their conduit is their conduit. They don't share. Municipality conduit, City of Dubuque has their configuration set up where they openly will lease their conduit or lease fiber or share it in some form with private sector, but also with other municipalities, i.e. us. So this is the rough path that I got from the city about how the conduit and fiber would flow out to the EOC. So I don't know the exact route. We would not get into that until we actually say, okay, we want to intentionally explore this. We know what it would cost if we just want the city to give us a pair of fiber out to the EOC. That's a roughly known cost, and that's what's on the spreadsheet. What I would like to do is elevate that conversation of, okay, what does a larger partnership look like? And I don't know what that is. I mean, we would need to see who all needs access. I mean, I know obviously city needs access, county needs access, 911 needs access. A lot of people need the EOC location, and there is infrastructure a long ways out there. I mean, the city is close, but the city's not all the way there.
Well, doesn't Sunnycrest have fiber out to there? Or Hillcrest now? The old Julian Care facility?
Well, but I don't know whose fiber that would be. That's the thing, is that somebody owns fiber, and
Right,
they're not just going to let you use it. Like it's a valuable property. And you also get into the situation where, especially with healthcare, they're not going to let you ride on their fiber. Like if they have spare fiber, if they have excess capacity, there may be a opportunity to lease that from them. But most healthcare providers are not going to let you encapsulate your traffic and ride over their fiber. I mean, it opens up security risks when you're having foreign traffic use their paths.
I understand that, but Hillcrest, that entity out there is city property. I'm assuming that the city would have the fiber out there.
I don't know if they're all the way out there, but my point is, that will be part of the conversation. And again, even if the city is all the way out there, then yeah, we will lease the city fiber. I mean, we'll have them finish the conduit to the EOC if they're not already there. And then we would lease a pair of fiber, or we would have a larger conversation of, you know, what does it look like if we have a big bundle of fiber, say 144 pair from the EOC all the way back downtown, and city gets a third, 911 gets a third, county gets a third, or quarter, something like that. That would be enough for 30, 40 years. Like we're not going to need more fiber than that.
Your thoughts, Supervisor Wickham?
I'll start with the good news, maybe the positive. You know, I think having faster internet access and fiber to all our locations is prudent, wise, and probably couldn't come soon enough. And as Nathan said, most likely you're not going to get around this, because every new generation of software, wireless device, you know, it's going to require more and more bandwidth, and there's going to be more and more devices on those networks, which will require more speed, better access. So that's happening. Now, there could be other methods and ways that we get there that we don't really know right up today, and or other ways to pay for it. There's a lot of talk with rural fiber options and funding for that from the federal government, even the state. Whether we'd qualify or not, we're not sure. You know, I'm generally all for this. I think it's a good thing. I'll just go back to, it seems like we, for some reason, always gets the short end of the stick on agreements with the city. You know, the city and all of their wonderful people are using our E91 system that the county paid entirely for, and we're paying $2 million a year in debt service on. And there was no charge whatsoever that we ever got passed in discussions. And I was the only one that brought that up. And so here we are again with their utility, and they are insisting that we pay for it. I just find inequities in those.
So if we could be, making it cheaper, that's obviously what everyone would like to do. I don't know that it's going to be free. And, how sweet this deal is something that I think, Nathan's going to do some checking to see how other large municipalities might have shared these agreements. But I do think we should begin with Sunnycrest, and the only thing I've said is when you start at $1.08, you're at $1.08. You're not going to find somebody who's going to probably do it less than that. Your bargaining position has been shown, and the response back to that by Nathan's been, "I know that. Let's take the deal." I mean, that's pretty much what he has said to me, is that this is a bargain and this is a benefit to us. And past agreements are not things that I think we can necessarily trade with. They've asked us to look at some other agreements, and we've not made great progress necessarily. Those are not closed yet. So, but the Sunnycrest to me seems to be a good use of high-speed fiber. Let's get it to a building we're always going to be part of and always own. And so I think it's worthwhile. And the EOC, I don't know those partnerships. I guess I would defer, Harley, to you if you think that's something we should begin. You're new to those boards in terms of your professional position there. But if we want to explore that as well, I have no interest in the buildings that we lease at this time.
I would agree with that. Like federal building, obviously, that's just a lease spot. I don't think we want to spend money running up there. I wouldn't have any problem with Sunnycrest. I think I could find out what the interest is out at the EOC and what kind of agreement could be made for the cost share or whatever, and we could move from there.
And I think what Nathan is saying to us is that if we don't fund this to some extent, he doesn't have anything to start having conversations with, right? So if we don't begin on this, then it's just really something that we keep not funding, that we don't give him any authority to pursue. But once we are on this road, then the conversations can begin.
Okay.
Yes. We need to start somewhere. And, I can tell you from a financial standpoint, these are highly competitive, friend of friend rates. And I agree with Supervisor Wickham, absolutely. I will talk, I will ask. But we need to start at some point, and if it means we enter into the agreement and we get Sunnycrest done, fantastic. That's one done. We're good for 15, 20 years minimum with that connection. And we can run parallel with the EOC during this process. That one's a little bit more complicated if we want to do a larger scope of it. And, if it ends up being there's not a lot of appetite with other partners, we still have a path to take care of our needs out of the EOC. Because remember, primarily because that's how we get to the West Campus, that we've already invested in the conduit and fiber to connect the EOC to West Campus. So the target is EOC, and then that means we get out to West Campus.
See, so that's the direct connection. We can help West Campus in our own county building by going to the EOC building.
Yes, that is all writing on INET. out there. And again, INET works. It has worked for 25 years, but it's gonna go away at some point.
Yeah, Nathan, I appreciate you, obviously doing a lot of the groundwork and then discussing with the city, the partnerships, but I really believe that it comes to the elected officials to do that negotiation of those partnerships. And
Okay.
it seems like I'm the only one ever sticking up for the interests of the county. And everyone's telling me, be quiet, cooperate, do what the city wants, give into their deals. And so, I just would love to see a fair and equitable relationship at one point come out of the city and county's relationship. And I just don't see it on this one. And it's another example.
Well, it's budget time. And so if we're going to try to proceed with any of this, we need to put a number into the budget. And that doesn't mean Nathan's out entering into contracts on our behalf, but it is giving him the opportunity to continue to explore relationships. It's not going to come at no cost. Otherwise, I think this would already been resolved and we wouldn't be having these discussions for the third, fourth, maybe fifth or sixth year. I'm not sure. So, does that mean, Supervisor Wickham, you wouldn't be part of consensus on moving forward on the fiber leasing for Sunnycrest and EOC?
I mean, I think, as I said, it makes sense and we should do it. I think assuming that you're going to always pay a cost for it is not a real accurate assumption. The city of Dubuque pays $0 for a 911 system. The county's paying the entire bill. Now, granted, we have the same taxpayer base, but those living in unincorporated areas, they may not share the same view as the city does, and that's who we represent solely.
So what would you propose we do with this request before us?
I would definitely like to see the unit cost, understand more about the cost per linear foot. Where is that going, and who are we paying that to before we enter into any agreements? And I once again haven't heard anything from my colleague related to the points I'm making, but overall related to the technology and the speed, we need it. I mean, it's something that's needed.
So Nathan, the number that you need to begin your exploration of this without, the Sunnycrest project, I think we know is the one we'll probably start with, but do you have to have the full funding for these two to begin more concrete negotiations with the city, or for elected officials to take? I think we need to at least put something on the books that we're interested in pursuing this, and that allows this to not be neglected, but we have to move forward. So what is the dollar amount that you need to begin?
I mean, I think since this would be the first rodeo, there's a lot of unknowns and there's a learning curve with some of this on our point is getting fiber from the curb into the buildings. So, I would be comfortable with potentially 30 grand for Sunnycrest. And if we want to earmark a chunk of money for EOC, that would be fantastic. I think it helps. Otherwise, what would occur then is I would, unless the board, Sunnycrest is Sunnycrest, that would be that. And then if the board wishes to negotiate with the city directly or try to develop that contract further, I'm on board. Whatever way I can support that. If the directive would be for me to take that on further, okay. I would like to try to get EOC and Sunnycrest done this fiscal, but Sunnycrest this fiscal will be great. And then we can spend this year talking about the EOC. So I guess roundabout answer, I mean, these are budgetary numbers. I think if you do the math, it's like 115 to have a build out at each location plus the leasing. So I had 150 for the unknowns.
Stella, over to you. You want to be on screen and help us through this too? We need to find a number to put in the budget that makes the fiber at Sunnycrest begin and gives enough in the budget. This is me trying to formulate my motion, that we're putting enough in the budget that we're going to begin high-speed fiber. So where do we want to put that?
So Nathan indicated 30,000 would be his number for Sunnycrest to get that piece moving. I believe EOC, based on the spreadsheet, at least probably 50,000
Yeah, I would say,
to move that.
yeah, I mean, I guess the question is I don't know how far down the rabbit hole we're going to go with EOC when it comes to partnerships. It could be that we pay more on the front end and not have a lease cost for 20 years. I don't know. You know, I'll just throw it out there. I think 130 for Sunnycrest, and then we earmark 70 for future EOC collaborations.
Right.
And just so, what would your estimate, Nathan, be, or Stella, be? How much of that budget money would you estimate is planning to go right to the city of Dubuque?
I'm sorry, Jay, I crackled a little bit there hearing you. Could you say that again?
Oh, yeah. What would be your estimate that out of that budgeted number, if it's 100,000, that would be going to the city of Dubuque?
My understanding how the contracts are set up, I don't know if GDC has some sort of retainer fee or percentage, but the vast majority of that would go to the city of Dubuque.
So let's scope the project out. Let's get it developed. Let's see the relationships and see if we can formulate those to reduce the cost to Dubuque County taxpayers. Because this comes out of general basic and this hits everyone, regardless if you live in the city of Dubuque or not.
Well, and we're doing this because it helps county, not the city of Dubuque. We're doing this because it's something that the county needs. And it's
So the
something
100,000 is not going to hurt the city. They're getting the funds. The city's getting the funds. That is definitely helping them.
Obviously, and that's great. They've got something they've got something that we want to use, and we can enter into an agreement with them. And it sounds like the number that we have before us is generous. It's not free. If this was on the west side of the county and we were talking to the city of Dyersville, I wouldn't expect them to do it for free. So that's not my expectation. I'm looking at it as I'm charged with the county buildings, and we're looking at Sunnycrest, and we're looking at EOC, and the relationship issue is good, but I'm not completely focused on that, Supervisor Wickham. I'm trying to make some positive progress for the infrastructure that we have there with whomever the partner is. So, that's my motivation. So I think this project needs to begin. And I think the $30,000 for Sunnycrest is going to tell us something, but it's going to leave, the EOC available. So, I'll make a motion that we proceed with the fiber lease to Sunnycrest in fiscal year 22, anticipated dollar amount of $30,000.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. Do we have further discussion?
Any interest on the EOC side, adding that, or is it just Sunnycrest one and done?
I would be happy to add the EOC, but I also want to be cognizant of the things you raised, Jay, about relationships and about making sure this is the best foot forward. If I could find consensus and we're unanimous in this, sure, I would include EOC too. But for it to be baby steps, that's the purpose of the motion being Sunnycrest only. If you would like to join us, I would be happy to add the EOC. And Harley, for discussion, that would go back to you. You seconded a motion of $30,000, not $100,000.
Well, the EOC, I kind of thought we were gonna see if we could develop some relationship for out there, because obviously the city needs a EOC just like we do. Obviously, it's an integral part of the whole system. But yeah, I wouldn't have a problem adding that in, but that we'd have to try to work out
Right.
some agreement.
We're just trying to get some money to IT to begin this process. He can complete Sunnycrest and he will have to work on the EOC component to make all those partners that are obvious happy. So
I would like to see the DOC included, and I'd like to see those negotiations and discussions at the city of Dubuque go on. I mean, they're using our 911 system at no charge. So, I mean, you keep saying you can't get it for free. They proved you can. I'm not saying that's where I would start and end the conversation, but the county is absorbing that county levy on debt service for the 911 system is going to be there for 15 years, maybe 13 now. And that hits everyone, whether you live in New Vienna, Holy Cross, Epworth, or Dubuque, it hits you.
Right.
And the city of Dubuque, as a government entity, did not absorb that cost. And they have taxing authority just like us. And so now when it's reversed, our taxing authority and our taxing base is getting, no, you got to pay for this. And I just don't like that. I don't think it's fair and equitable. So I would like to include Sunnycrest and EOC in the initial project, and let's talk about how we can make it more fair and equitable.
And I guess it's the talk about make it more fair and equitable, because I don't know what that means. My motion is to let the IT director go forward and do what he does, and that is to get fiber to places that need it. I don't want to be behind on this any longer to the buildings that we own. And we use, the EOC, but that's the Emergency Operations Center. Every citizen in the county relies on that 100%. So we all rely on that. And the same with Sunnycrest. That's, part of our safety net for every citizen in the county. So, that's I don't want to say that I'm tying the director's hands. He will come back and have to show us all contracts and all negotiations, but this budget time. So do we have consensus? We should increase that amount to $100,000 and have reporting back from the director of IT.
I definitely would agree with the 100,000 and the two items. I just don't think you should send our IT director to negotiate with the city. I think that's why we have elected officials, us. That's what our responsibilities are, is to make sure we're looking at the best interests of Dubuque County, along with the county attorney. And if we need to outsource other people, we do. Nathan certainly would be along with that, but I think that's kind of my beef here is the elected officials from the county, I don't think have stood their ground on many agreements in the past that I've seen. And I'm continue to be vocalizing it. And I'm going to do that to vocalize because the city of Dubuque is a component of Dubuque County, but it's not the whole piece. It's just a component.
Well, Supervisor Wickham, as we find ourselves today, there are 3 of us in the elected officials capacity that could carry this water and move it forward. I am happy as the chair to take on that responsibility. Obviously, my understanding of fiber is based on a lot of what Nathan is bringing me along with. If you would like to be that person to be involved with him in doing some kind of negotiation, I have no problem with that. But I'm happy to stay connected to the IT director and work on this to get the best deal we can, whether I'm talking to Mike Van Milligan or whomever. That's all good. I'm not shying away from that. That's fine. So I guess at this point, I would amend my motion to include the dollar amount of $100,000 and to work on both Sunnycrest and the EOC. With an amendment to the motion, would the second continue to support that?
Yes, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for $100,000 for the projects of Sunnycrest and EOC, Emergency Operations Center. Supervisor Wickham, do you have discussion about this? Is there something that I'm missing in my motion?
No, I think it was a good discussion, and I appreciate it, and would encourage you to continue to be the lead in discussing with the city that relationship as the chair.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries with unanimity. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Thank you, Nathan, for that discussion. Did you have something else that you wish to bring before us for another look? I know there was a little bit of issue with maybe we should be looking at, some kind of security indoors at some of our locations.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion and the direction on what to do next for these fiber locations. So I think I may have said it too fast in the previous budget.
We're listening as fast as we can, Nathan.
No, that's on me. I think I probably talked too fast. It got back to me that there was an impression that these were things that I wanted to do for my own reasons, and that Anthony was not an advocate for these. So let me reiterate, no, I would never bring something like this to the board if the primary stakeholder of the location was not an advocate for it. So let me just be clear. I mean, I believe Anthony is on this call. He had to drop off on my first budget session, but no, he is an advocate for the technologies in these two locations, one or both, whether we do one this year and one the next year or none of them, but he can certainly speak to his advocacy for it. But I just want to make it clear, I would never bring something to the board if they weren't on board. So nothing's really changed as far as my perspective of these are county locations. We have one that has almost no technology and no security. We have one that has some technology and some security. Getting them to be similar, not identical, but similar to the West Campus facilities would be, I think, a reasonable goal for security, for parity, as vehicles move from one location to another, as Anthony investigates, with IT assisting with future time and attendance type situations. So I would like to see these proceed. Anthony's on the call too. He can certainly jump in when ready to give his take on it.
And I'll jump in because I was here on this original project. I think I was only board member at the time. So maybe question to Nathan and Anthony, maybe not Durango, if you can jump back to Farley. The Farley improvements we're looking at, were those generative improvements we removed from the original package? Because I remember actually having a vote, and it was unanimous, that we removed those items. And so I'm not saying that that's what has to be, but I'm just trying to gain clarity on is that you guys' memory as well?
So Jay, I do not remember it that way. And I know, I feel confident in saying that because we did not have door access ready as a department and as a platform to deploy when this building was done. There were pieces in it that I had labeled future door access. So rough-ins, conduit, things like that. But the actual technology piece of it, I don't recall having that unless it was some large number that I just put in as door access, which I don't remember that.
This is Anthony. I am on here, by the way. So
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
Did you have, I guess.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon. Just to kind of add to what Nathan is speaking to here. I guess more on the immediate basis, we would like to transition to the door access for another layer of security. As it is right now, there's a little punch pad, keypad out there to access in, and everybody knows the code of that. And then our other buildings are a key-in kind of situation. So we just got kind of a variety of ways to get into buildings, whether it's keys or a keypad or card access. Kind of the bigger vision moving forward, I would like to go to more of an electronic clock, time clock system, where we can eventually get to the point where people are clocking in and clocking out, and even their different codes that they work on in between the shift or in between the clock in, clock out, they're able to electronically sort of upload that code. That way, eventually everything is at some point electronically transferred into the Tyler payroll system. As it is right now, we have to do a lot of things manually, and it takes anywhere from a day to day and a half to do payroll. So I think there's some future efficiencies to that with a card access system. And then, like kind of Nathan said, it's the security. So yes, we have cameras out there, but it's another layer of security when somebody clocks or badges in with their card. We know who's there. Otherwise, we don't have a good record of that. So those were just kind of my thoughts. I'm in support of this, and eventually moving towards it just based on those bigger vision ideas.
Jay, I appreciate your perspective as the only person who was on the board at that time. And, I think anything we do here today about this isn't reflective that you made a mistake or that it wasn't an informed decision. Some of it might just be the passage of time, that they're more apparently needed because we've done things at West Campus that have been successfully received, and they've been good improvement there. But that's a new build, so why not do it? As I understand this, there's going to need to be a lot more work done here. It's not just like you're attaching something. The shop itself requires that things be, Nathan can bring us all up to speed on that, but it needs more build out on the inside in terms of technology build out to make this happen. So that's the reason I think things are a little bit higher cost than I was anticipating. But, now we have a former sheriff's captain. I mean, at some point, law enforcement's going to wonder why we don't have this. And it's not that we didn't think it was, maybe it's more important today because we're another example, and maybe we're not quite up to where we should be just because of passage of time. I don't know if you want to respond to that, and Harley as well.
Obviously, I know the benefit of the access cards, what time they get there, who's there. Obviously, it is a benefit to the county. There's no doubt about that. And as far as the time clock part of it goes, I mean, it works that way too. When they go through the door, obviously, they're there, their time starts. I guess I wasn't there.
A simple question is, so when you say the vehicle garage doors, they're not manual, are they? I mean, you push a button and they go up today, right?
I mean, Anthony can say definitively, but I would have to believe they're not manual. That would seem, these are really heavy doors.
Yeah, they're remote. They're remote.
Okay, so this would just bring it into maybe the computerized system and a network system, so you'd know when they went up, when they went down, and potentially what operator lifted them up and down, similar to a key card going into the main access. You'd know whose key card it was and when it was open, when it was closed, all that good stuff. So yeah, I am not against this. I just wanted to refresh my memory that I think there was a carve out, and it wasn't 80 grand. It was probably in the neighborhood of half that or a little less that we carved out of that original project just to save money, because I believe the building probably came in over budget, and it's probably at least $1 million facility somewhere in that neighborhood. But there's nothing here that's objectionable to me if the board feels they want to move forward, and Anthony and IT both feel it's a needed component. I'm ready to go as well.
I'd make the motion on for the budget purposes for the 82.5 for the Farley shop.
And I will second that.
I have a motion and a second for $82,500 improvement for door access at the Farley shop. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to also look at Durango this cycle or push this off to the next one?
What I would be interested in knowing is how many people work out of Farley versus how many people and or vehicles versus how many work at Durango, so we can understand the kind of the scale.
We have about a dozen guys that work out of the Farley shop. Wintertime is when the employee count inflates a little bit over at Durango. I think it goes up to around 5 employees, and then in the summertime it drops back down a little bit. So yeah, at most it's around 4 or 5 in the Durango shop.
Anthony, I recall you indicating that maybe to do social distancing and to keep operations moving forward, you've assigned more employees here. Is my memory correct, or is that a different location?
Yeah, there is 1 or 2 that were added to this location, and then we spread out to other areas as well. We have several small sheds throughout the county that we're able to kind of spread 1 or 2 guys per shed out to.
I do want to, oh, sorry. I just wanted to jump in and refresh your memories that you did approve security cameras only at the Durango shop on the first budget work session. So that piece has already been approved.
And I don't have a strong number yet. I can certainly have that by early next week. I guess part of me would be, let's see what the board wants to do with the full project. And then I can certainly, if that is the decision, I can get that number to you early next week.
Anthony, do you have anything you want to add to this request? Is it important that we get the Wi-Fi and a few more network drops out there? Is there something more that we're just not seeing? Could people be more productive if that was added?
As far as having the door access, it would be very similar to Farley. This is one of our primary shops that I don't see going away. We have some other smaller shed locations out in the county that I wouldn't necessarily look at door access because I don't think the future is, necessarily good for that building. We might eventually move somewhere else. But Durango is going to be one that we're going to hang on to for quite some time. And, it would be very similar to Farley that we'd want to try to have that same kind of technology.
And I would just put the plug in. The Wi-Fi is actually the cheapest part of this. That might be $1,800 total.
Nathan, what is your connection out there?
It's 150 meg synchronous through Makokota Valley.
Okay.
I'm fine with the full improvement. Does anyone, if we're only off the mark by the $1,800, I'm not sure why we're back here for that, but.
Yeah, I'll second that if you're making a motion, Ann, or we'll just.
I'll
get
make a
both of
motion.
them.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we have the full improvement amount of $45,000 for the Durango shop as presented to us here. Is there any further discuss? You have the second then, Harley?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, a motion and a second on this improvement to the Durango shop. All in favor signify aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your
Good
persistence.
to see you again, Nathan and Anthony.
Thank you, Nathan. Thanks, Anthony.
Good work.
Nathan. Thank you, Anthony.
Got
Thank
what
you,
you want.
supervisors.
Thank you.
Okay,
we-
so,
We're an hour and a half. Did my colleagues respond to that email that the auditor sent? Did that get concluded, or do we need to take a brief recess to take action on that request that's out there pending? It relates, I think, to law enforcement. Have you seen that?
I received one response back from Supervisor Wickham. I have not received the second response I need.
Okay, so
Did not get a chance to look at it yet. If we want to just take a quick recess.
I'm going to make a motion for a 10-minute recess.
I'll second that.
Motion a second for a 10-minute recess. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
We're in recess until 2:41. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wind's starting to whip out here pretty good.
Are you seeing that blizzardness, Harley? That the white
Oh,
coming
yeah.
by? Are
Got-
you?
Got the trees moving pretty good. I'd say probably got a good 4, if not more, inches of snow.
It's going to be terribly cold, isn't it?
It's still winter in Iowa. It's not January, but it's going to be January weather for a week here.
Yeah.
One good thing about Zoom, I guess you don't have to go out in it.
Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed that I had someone deliver things to my house today. That's the first time I've had that happen. So. All right. Okay, I'll call the Board of Supervisors back into session, and Stella, go back to you.
Okay, so next up on our agenda is the county recorder has a personnel improvement request that he would like to discuss. So I see he's on. Okay.
Yep, and perfect
Hi,
time.
John.
You just jumped on too. But if you recall back to my budget presentation, I talked about the increases we've seen over the last 2 years in our real estate. And again, it's 3 kind of areas. It's real estate, our vital records, and our DNR transactions. Our real estate's up 36.87% from where we were 2 years ago. Our vital records are up 19.76%. And for DNR on the renewals, we're up 23.5% from where we were 2 years ago. So when you look at those numbers, about 60 to 70% of what we do revolves around the real estate transactions. That's where most of our staff hours are dedicated to, is the real estate. So I guess the question was, when you look at those numbers, are these trends going to continue? I don't have that answer. If I did, I'd probably be making a lot more money than I am. But with the real estate, it's due to low interest rates, a healthy real estate market locally across the county. That's the reason our real estate's up. For the vital records, it's due to the gold star that's required now for your driver's license. So that requires that birth certificate and possibly a marriage license if you changed your name. So those are the reasons why our numbers are up so high. I think DNR is also kind of tied into COVID, that people are trying to find new ways to get outside. Again, I don't have that answer, but what I can tell you is that from July 1st of 2020 to the end of the calendar year, we did $581,000 in revenue, which is more than we did 2 years ago in the entire fiscal year, and about $10,000 short of what we did the entire previous fiscal year. So the revenue is definitely up. And what my solution for this is not looking necessarily at a long-term full-time or part-time position that would require a commitment from the county to pay for that position long-term. I'm thinking more along the lines of a PRN type position, if you're familiar with that terminology that is used typically in nursing. That with this PRN type position, we would have no commitment or obligations to the employee or the employee to us. My thought is for this role that we would have a set allocation of funds that could be used, and the person that would be hired would be able to fill in for vacations and also if we fall behind. There was one point in the month of November that we were about 30 days behind on our real estate. So that can be something that can ultimately delay closings and transactions in the real estate market. And that's my concern, is that we don't want to fall into that trap again. So what the thought is, and I have a high level of confidence that if we post this position, that I will have an experienced person come in that has the expertise to hit the ground running in our office. If it's not the right candidate, I probably would not want to proceed with this, and I would turn the money back to the county, because this is specific to find somebody that can come in and fill that role with the real estate. So if we're starting to fall behind, they come in, help us get caught back up. It would take excess of a year to properly train somebody to do the real estate, or longer, to do what we need on the real estate side. So the potential is, bring somebody in that has a significant amount of experience to come in and be able to help us when we need it. But on the same page, that individual would not have an obligation to us. So, in theory, the conversation would be, hey, I'm going to call you every month, and I kind of lay out when we have staff on vacation and where we're at with our real estate and how many hours we can have you work that month. It hopefully we'd be able to do that. The way the numbers broke out, I think we'd be looking at a $20,000 allocation, could average up to about 14 hours a week. But again, this would be something that maybe they're not working for 2, 3, 4, or 5 weeks at a time, and then coming in for 20, 25 hours a week to help us get caught up, or to fill in for staff vacations. So, that's the request, is bringing somebody in, again, that is not a long-term commitment to. It would be more along that PRN type position for the future. So, any questions that I can answer for the board members?
Stella, can you screen share the request?
Dawn, can you make me co-host again? When I lost connection, I think I lost that ability. Okay.
So you have somebody in mind already for the position, John, or?
To be honest with you, it started with somebody that has worked 30 plus years in the department, sent me a text asking when the W-2s were going out. And I said that we just got ours today. So you should be getting the mail shortly. And yeah, conversation proceeded, and she asked how things were going. I kind of gave her a overview of the last year and what's occurred since COVID started. And it started as a joke. I asked any chance you'd want to come back and work, and she laughed and said, well, I don't know, how would, that's how the conversation started. And I think it's something that I'm pretty confident that she would be putting her name in, and that she would be a perfect solution for the dilemma that we're in now, as far as just being a little bit behind on our staffing and being a little bit behind on our real estate.
Okay. She'd obviously be hit the floor running, like you said. I see that. And
John, I appreciate that you've been busier than ever before, but I didn't hear you say you had a need right now. You talked about being behind in November. So I'm not sure what the need is currently. This isn't something, this is something that I would look at during the year if it was needed, but I'm not sure I want to honestly start PRN positions in the departments. Is it related to COVID? Is it related to, as you say, there's no way to predict. So,
yeah, right now we are about 10 to 12 days. Real estate is sitting in the back room that, we're getting caught up to. So we're in the progress of catching up. And part of the reason we fell so far behind was due to COVID. and that we did have one staff person out for about a month, another one that was out for a full 2 weeks due to exposures and whatnot. So that did help create the deficit while we fell behind. And the goal is that we don't want any lenders, anybody in the real estate market to have to possibly not process transactions due to us falling behind. So that's why this type of request makes a lot of sense in my mind, is that it's one of those commitments that's not, there really isn't a commitment from our end to this individual. It's something that if we're getting caught up, then we don't need to bring them in. And I'm confident her feelings would not be hurt if she was not coming in for weeks or months at a time. And on the same page, for the most part, for the calendar year of 2020, we did not have staff taking any vacation, just due to the fact that there's nowhere to go, nothing to do. Now, as I'm looking at the number of vacation hours that we have available in our staff, and they're, they've rightfully earned those and they're going to use those. That's a challenge I see ahead, is that it's going to be difficult to grant all the vacation hours when, that have built up over the next 6 months. And historically speaking, this is one of the slowest months of the year for us when it comes to real estate. And we're still a little bit, which is concerning for me, knowing that we're going into the spring. Again, that's typically when all the transactions begin in the real estate market. And knowing that we have that coming ahead, I want an extra layer of protection so that we're not falling behind and trying to bring somebody in at the last minute, if we need additional assistance here in the spring months. So,
John, I'm not understanding how a lender would not lend because there was a backlog at the recorder's office. It's not like there's nobody else to do this work but you. So I just don't understand can you just give me an example of how that would be? How would a lender not do this because you couldn't get them the documents they needed, or what? What would we be failing to do that would impact a citizen in lending?
Yeah. So, if you wanted to, if you're going to refinance your property, or let's say you're selling your property and want to buy a new one, that release of mortgage comes down to us. Again, we don't supply documents to any of these entities. They bring them to us. And when they do that, we are able to scan it into the system, and then it's immediately. But there is a process for us to complete the document so that it's that there aren't mistakes made and that it's indexed properly. And when we go through that process, that's where we're a week or 2 weeks or up to a month behind, like we were back in November. So the concerns for these entities will then be is that, they might not be able to confirm that the release of their previous mortgages already went through or not. They might not be able to, they're going to show in the system that, hey, you still have this old property. This property is still in your name. And until it's completed on our end, it's not really, legally completed in the eyes of whether it's lenders or title companies or. So, there's, when we have a delay, we do end up getting calls from these various entities in the real estate market that call and need confirmation, like, hey, it says incomplete. Is that, they're concerned. They want to make sure that everything's above board and that it's going the way it's supposed to. And it was, the conversation that I had to have, almost daily there for the month of November and December to explain that, yes, we do need, we're a few weeks behind due to the COVID situation. And I don't anticipate us getting to that document for another 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever the timeline was. So it was a common conversation that I had with various entities in the real estate.
But then wouldn't you reprioritize processing that if you knew it was holding up someone's lending?
The number of documents, we're doing 200 or 300 of those a day, or 100 to 200, 250 a day. And when we're having those counts, we're not really pulling one out in order to address it. We're trying to stay in the order that we are, because that's by far the most efficient route that we can process the documents.
Yeah, I don't know. I normally defer to your judgment on all this, but I'm just not. It didn't come up as part of your presentation to us, and
actually in the presentation, I did state when I talked about those numbers is that I may be coming back for additional staffing due to these numbers. I mean, when you're seeing those large of increases, what is already the smallest recorder's office in the state with over 40,000 people in it, that's inevitable. And I think the phrase I use is that we may have a trick or two up our sleeve yet. And this is that possible solution right there.
Right, but you won't be able to hire that person specifically, will you?
No, so the way it would work is if this position is open, it would be posted, and anybody that is in the union would have a right to apply. And the question that, because this is non-guaranteed hours, and that would be clearly stated, I don't know who would be necessarily interested in taking a job that's part-time, specific in real estate that they probably haven't done any work in. So yeah, it would be posted just like any other position. But again, there are no guaranteed hours that come with it.
And then if no one in the union wanted it, would go out to the public, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, where I'm at is, certainly, very pleased to hear that our level of service is being increased and people are using the county services. I'm very pleased we've generally been able to keep up, and we've actually completed more records in a new format than we had in the past. So that's good innovation to your department, John. So hats off. And if I would look at an area to invest, if we're investing in people and service on a part-time basis, I think that's a win-win. So I'm in support at this point.
Yeah, I don't believe I have any issues with it. Obviously, it's just as needed type thing. There's no guaranteed hours. With all the vacation and accrued time off that you're probably going to be facing in the summer, you may be needing somebody to step up to help. I understand that too. So
The only comment I would make to my colleagues is that this is the as needed position. And I can't imagine that we don't have every department who needs this. And so are we opening up another way to be adding on-call staff throughout the county? Is that where we want to head? Is this unique somehow because of COVID? Is this something that would only last for a 1-year term? We get to look at it again. Otherwise, I think we're just going to see potential to see these come from absolutely everybody. And what's our criteria?
I think you referenced that to your colleagues on the board, but that would be my intent, is that this could be reevaluated on an annual basis. And that, I think the numbers for this volume of transactions would speak to it, in addition to just current staffing situations. And that, again, just the number of vacation time that we have in our office. It's been a definite concern for myself, is figuring out how we can grant everyone the vacation time they've earned according to the contract. And it's kind of that those are the two focal points that I would have. Is number one is to help us get caught up when we're falling behind, and secondly is to fill in for those vacation hours. If it's something that we're going 3 or 4 months and we get through this summer where we're not having significant transaction counts with the real estate, yeah, I mean, maybe we don't use much of this. I don't know. The 20,000 would be the cap as to what I could foresee using. But on the same page, I mean, if the real estate market slows down and we're not having many transactions, yeah, they might not work much at all, if at all.
John, how far back out in days are your appointments?
Right now, I believe we're 8 days out. With the appointments, we're very specific to keep those counts low. We're only doing 7 or 8 appointments on the schedule that you can book in advance. And the reason why is we're getting another 5 to 10 people per day that the DOT is seeing that needs to come in, do their transaction with us, in order to go back and get their driver's license squared away. Because the DOT, I think, is about 5 or 6 weeks out.
The other way to look at this is that we have an office that was greatly reduced to the public for a significant period of time. And there's limited appointments being made every day. And that we're hiring a person to help our employees under those circumstances be able to take vacation. So those might have great value to us. I don't know that that necessarily sounds the same when you see it from that perspective. So I'm not in favor of PRN employees, and certainly not at the, necessarily at the discretion of the department head who's trying to, figure out vacation schedules. We could be, I guess I'd like to see this come from Recorder Murphy talking to more of a systems approach, talking to our HR administrator, and it coming from that perspective, if we're going to make some kind of a policy shift about how we hire people.
I don't understand what you just indicated as far as changing the way that we hire people. And this wouldn't be a change. As far as going to a PRN, it is a situational decision, and one that I would stand behind wholeheartedly, because again, if you don't see a benefit to the public, then you might not just have that experience from the various entities involved in real estate that call on us every day and appreciate the difference between being caught up and being behind 5 weeks at a time.
So I would ask Dawn Sherman, our HR administrator, has this been discussed, and is this something that you're making as a recommendation as it relates to the county as a whole?
So John and I did discuss it. I am not recommending it based on the need. That is for Recorder Murphy to decide that. But if there is a need, I believe in this situation, a PRN type of position would be the best position. John and I reviewed the union contract. There's language in there that would prohibit this employee from accruing any sick leave, from accruing any vacation. They strictly would be as needed, and they would have the ability to say no as well. So I mean, he is correct. The $20,000 would be about 100 or 770 hours for the year. Again, I would look at Recorder Murphy to decide if that's the right dollar amount, if that's the right hours. But in this type of situation, I think a PRN is right. And I look at that only for FY22. I went and looked at that. If it was something that was going to be year over year, I think it would be more of a permanent part-time employee, given that many hours, and then they would have some benefits with that. But just looking at it 1 year, a one-time situation, PRN would be the way to go if you agree that there is need for it.
Dawn, it says he's adding a permanent part-time position. This isn't a temporary position. This is a permanent addition to his office. And again, that's if we want to make it be situational to a temporary time frame, the different discussion. But otherwise, we're looking at adding permanent part-time people throughout the county. I'm not prepared to do that. If we're trying to respond to something that exists right now for short term, I'm not sure how that would be $20,000 a year. So I'd like to see this be a little bit more specific. And that probably just needs, maybe we need to take away the word permanent and have it be temporary, and then start looking at maybe it's a less dollar amount and it can be readjusted then. But I think this is a little too broad for me.
Okay, I mean, I have zero issue eliminating the word permanent, and yeah, we can add the verbiage in there that it needs to be that in order to continue into the the next fiscal year, it would need to be reappropriated. I have zero issue with that.
Yes, what would the hourly rate be, John?
I don't recall exact dollar amount, but I think it would be as a clerk 4, which is what have people classified as to do real estate, all levels of the real estate. So right around $21, I believe.
I didn't hear what you said, John.
Right around $21.
Okay.
Exactly what the step scale is for clerk fours.
And we looked at that. I thought that was most appropriate, given these are the most complex records that they process.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I will make a motion to approve $20,000 for fiscal year 22 into the recorder's budget for this personnel request and remove the verbiage of permanent from the request.
I will second that.
In discussion, I would ask that we would have it be a temporary part-time position, but that it would actually end at the end of maybe even this current fiscal. Well, do you intend to use it for this fiscal year that we're currently in? You're asking for a start date here of April 1st. So it's actually an improvement to our current budget. And then why would it be needed in our fiscal year 22 budget? So, I mean, there might be a need to have a little bit more work being done on this to bring it back even for purposes of inclusion in our budget.
And procedurally, you would again approve a personnel requisition for this position when Recorder Murphy goes to recruit for it, when he officially opens it and wants it posted. So you'll have another opportunity to approve the personnel requisition.
Right, but that's going to come and say you've budgeted for it. I mean, I've been around long enough. I know that's how it comes up, that you budgeted for it and you've already approved this. And so here it is. So if we have issues with this now is the time to pause and get them corrected. It's definitely impacts fiscal year 21. Obviously, it's a minor impact, but it is a fiscal year 22 request that's going to take place during the current fiscal year and then continue in theory up to we spend $20,000 in the next fiscal year. And so the temporary part of this is what? That it automatically expires, or is it something that becomes just a renewal? What's the temporary of it?
Well, I can answer that. Every piece, almost every piece of what we do is temporary. If we don't budget it each year, it doesn't happen. It doesn't, that's by law. So if it's not included in the budget next year, it doesn't happen. And that's true with every expenditure we have.
That is correct. But again, it becomes in the way that it's presented. It comes in the way that it's presented, whether or not it's temporary because of the real estate market or COVID, or it comes as this is how my office runs and operates, and this is the staffing level that I use. So it isn't that we're going to be reminded that it was temporary.
Sure. I removed the word permanent at your request. Or do you have another request? I would love to please your request. Is there more verbiage you want on this, or is it just to stop it? Otherwise, my motion stands.
I'm actually just reading it. I'm taking a moment here to see that.
I guess I'm sorry.
No, Harley, go ahead.
Would we need it split out for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22? You know, like say 4,000 for the remaining of fiscal year 21 and then 16 for fiscal year 22, something like that? Or
as a potential suggestion, if you allocated it for the current fiscal year, we could carry it over for next fiscal year for a total of $20,000. And essentially, I mean, my thought is through the course of the spring, this summer, we'll find out what the demand is going to be of our office as far as just the number of documents, number of transactions. That you know, I'll know whether or not I'm going to want to come back again a year from now and say, hey, this needs to continue because of X, Y, Z. This has been, you know, hands down the busiest year that we've had across all three spectrums of what we do. So that's why, yeah, it would make sense for me to be able to use it here as early as April and May. And Yeah, that $20,000, if that carried through, if that was allocated for this fiscal year and we then carried it over, whatever remains for next fiscal year, that would meet my hopes and expectations.
I guess that's what I would like to see fleshed out, is what is the hope and expectation, and have a personnel request in front of us that actually says these things. And we're not under a time constraint for this. It doesn't have to be until April 1st. So, you know, I find that my experience at the county, it's nice to see exactly what it is that you have in front of you in final form as compared to discussion points.
Stella, would you want to include this in your third amendment for 21? Would it need to be before April 1st?
So if we want to start April 1st, I would recommend in the third amendment of 21. So whatever motion that's made now, I would like to reflect that it would be a budget amendment.
Well, what we could do is we could have fiscal year 22. That was my motion. So the funds are available fiscal 22 starting in July. Bring another personnel request up for amendment in fiscal year 21. We've done that as well. So you don't have to try to solve everything right now. Please keep in mind, board, you just spent $200,000 on a high-level PowerPoint just a few minutes ago. So my motion stands. I think we have a second discussion. I would eventually want some vote, please.
I would, absolutely. What I was going to ask you to do is rephrase what it is your motion is.
Mary, you want to read back for me what you got?
You made the motion to approve $20,000 for the recorder's office and to remove the verbiage of permanent.
And I think I said fiscal year 22 as well.
Mary,
So
will the
Recorder
motion,
Murphy is,
I was just going to make sure, is Mary, is that what you're going to have in the motion, that it's for fiscal year 22?
Yeah,
Okay.
Weckham made the motion to approve $20,000 for the recorder for fiscal year 22 and to remove the verbiage of permanent.
so that takes care of fiscal year 22.
This is
So we're ready to take
PRN.
that.
Do you want the PRN in this or in the requisition?
Right now, I'm just trying to get the motion so I know whether or not I have a second. That's all I'm trying to do. So do we know what we're voting on?
We're going to add temporary where we remove the permanent, correct?
That's why we're asking Mary what she's going to record.
The Wickham made the motion to approve the recorder to hire a temporary employee, PRN for fiscal year 22, $20,000. And the verbiage to remove the permanent, I can take out of that because I'm putting in the temporary.
Okay.
So it'd be a $20,000 recorder for a PRN temporary employee for fiscal year 22.
Supervisor Wickham, does that accurately reflect your motion? Can you live with that?
That's good enough, yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Potoff, are you seconding that?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the motion that Mary's just read into the record. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. So what that means, if we're going to move forward with something for fiscal year 21, Stella, you'll need to bring that back to us. Right?
Correct.
Probably gone.
So the funding,
all of
yeah.
them.
Yes, the recorder in conjunction with Dawn would work
Right.
on
Well,
bring
we'll
a
see it.
separate request
And we'll
for
see a different piece of paper on that. So we'll go through our normal process for an amendment. Okay. Thank you, Recorder Murphy.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
What's next?
Okay, so next up, we have the Facilities Maintenance Departmental presentation. So let me stop that share. Let's see, Chris Soder is on. Hi, Chris.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Chris. Are you coming to us from the moon?
Yep. Might as well be the way the weather is out there.
Well, you did say you were going to work remotely, and you weren't kidding. You are working remotely.
Yeah, so if there's any time delay, that's because of the distance I'm just traversing. So
Well, welcome. Very good.
Thank you.
Are you set up with who's going to screen share and so forth?
if Stella wants to do it, I'm fine with that, or I can set up to do it myself, or give it a try at any rate.
Go ahead.
All right, let's see if I can get it up here. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All righty, sounds good. Just run through everything as we move forward here. What I've got is the first thing we're going over is a calendar year 20 and 21 COVID-19 response. We had a couple of blips when we had to shut down maintenance for 2 weeks because of entire staff exposure. We're trying to maintain is constant contact and open comms with everybody, staff and contractors, because if there's any questions about who's, whether or not anybody's sick or anything else, we need to know that. We're doing daily temperature testing of all our staff, my staff, as well as the contractors when they come in. COVID-19 has changed a lot of our cleaning processes. Biggest challenge we have is high touch areas, getting those completed. I'm bringing on another temporary person through Express Employment next Monday to continue moving ahead with that high touch area sanitization, especially with courts starting back up again. We're going to need that. We've added hand sanitizer stations in every possible place that they could be needed. And I'm stocking 10 gallons at a crack of liquid hand sanitizer all the time. All the offices are stocked with the necessary cleaning and sanitizing supplies for their personal spaces, as well as the shared spaces and equipment so they can keep everything clean. This last 11 and a half months has been a real test for our resolve, especially in my department, and being able to adjust to this crisis. Losing 3.5 months of contractor time because we closed the courthouse to everybody but staff has pushed back a couple of projects, and I'll cover those as we move a little bit further into this. Projects that are projected to complete in FY21, the Magistrates Courtroom is virtually finished. They have some minor things to finish up in there, but it will be opening next week for the court system to use it. The fire alarm system renovation is ongoing. The courthouse should be finished and up and running at 100% by early to mid-March. The old jail, as soon as the courthouse is up and running, they'll start doing the finalized work over there and getting that system up and running. The elevator controls modernization project is now, I spelled that week wrong. I didn't catch that. Starting the week of February 8th, they're gonna be start working on the elevator mechanical room upstairs and getting some of the stuff prepped for that. The old jail tuck point and paint project, we missed the weather window last fall. That will be finishing up as soon as we get good weather, which will be March or April, hopefully, to finish putting up the railings on the outside and whatever little bit of other touch-up needs to be done that we couldn't hit. Weather hit and temperatures dropped, and between the rain and that, we just couldn't get it finished. These are some pics I took in a magistrate's courtroom just to say, where we're at with it. The furniture is now in. That was delivered on Monday and set up. The smaller picture in the center there is the HVAC unit for the courtroom. It's ceiling ducted. You can't, if the door is closed, you can't even hear the system running, which should help eliminate the noise issues we have with our current system.
Chris, can I interrupt you for a minute and ask you a question about one of the pictures where there's still a unit under the windows? What is that unit?
That unit is there in the event that we have a full courtroom and a hot day, or to get the additional cooling we would need in the event that that system can't keep up. It's designed to keep up with a full load in there, but because of the the southeast exposure, that room, those areas get very, very warm in the summertime, even with the shades drawn and everything else. The odds of it running are slim, but like I said, if we get back to full courtroom capacity, which is like 54 people, it could get very warm in there.
Right, and then you'd have me asking, well, why did we take out the system that was in there?
Why did we take it out?
No, I'm just saying, that would be my question. It's like, well, it's really hot in here. Why did we take out the system that was in there? So that's the backup to the new system.
Yeah, it's a backup to the new system. The original, units, the one of them would have been right behind the judge's bench there, and that's a noise issue, which we're very well aware of, like in the supervisor's chambers and a number of other places. This eliminates, I'm going to say, over 90% of the noise issue. If that unit ever kicks on, we're good to go. Courthouse fire alarm system. Like I said, we're looking at going live the first week of March or mid-March. This is just an example of a new system, things that are going on. You're going to see these light and these speaker strobes that are in the ceilings. You're going to see the new smoke detectors. The far left picture is the main panel down in the boiler room. And they're still in the process of installing the last of the wiring and the remainder of the sensors and stuff. The far bottom right picture is the front door panel for the fire department. When they come in, that's the first place they're going to look to see what's going on. This was one of the projects we completed in the midst of COVID. The form center out in the foyer eliminated a lot of our people coming in and out of the building, as well as the scheduling kiosk. That's the upper left-hand picture there. We've got two scheduling kiosks, one at standing height and one at wheelchair height, for anybody that wants to schedule with the treasurer, the recorder, or anybody else that's using that. Projects to complete in fiscal year 21 and 22. Re-roofing the old jail pending spring inspection is on the list for this year. Window cleaning, courthouse and old jail, June, July, calendar year 21. We're doing in the process of replacing the existing ceiling fans that are in the courthouse. It's an ongoing project, and we're adding some ceiling fans in some key areas to help with the air movement in the building. Repainting the main stairwell and landings, first to third floors, tentatively looking at May. Trying to nail down times with my painting contractors so we can get a little bit more finite time frame, but it should be finished this May. Complete the LED lighting project. We implemented the LED lighting in the Magistrates Courtroom, and it's working fine. Flagpoles, which I know is a touchy subject. I have everything in place with an improvement request to do the flagpoles, replace them with new flagpoles, and also we'd be able to repurpose the existing flagpoles with minor repairs to other locations in the county that we would use them. Currently, right now, we are paying about $600 a month for our rag service. If we put in a stacked washer dryer, commercial stacked washer and dryer, we would be able to save. Well, the upfront cost is going to be right around $2,200. That'll save us basically 6 months. We'll make up the difference for the cost of doing that and get out from under the rag service. And that's an ongoing cost, so we'd be saving that money, I won't say in perpetuity because you're going to have some attrition, but the overall savings is going to be there throughout that. And then additional projects for FY 22 and 23. We'd had these on the agenda to work on demand water heaters for the third floor restrooms, remove lead water pipes. One of the projects we're looking at that we can do ourselves is install induct UV lighting in the courthouse and the old jail ducted HVAC systems. Basically what that does is it kills everything that goes through the ducts. Mold spores, bacteria and viruses, 100%, 99.99% kill rate is the way it's rated. We had some discussion, side discussion on the HVAC system upgrades for the courthouse in the areas like the courtrooms and the boardroom and larger office areas where the console noise is causing problems. And then FY23, looking at starting to replace the HV consoles in the old jail. They are all at the 15+ year mark at this point. And we need to start replacing them. They just start to cost too much money to keep operational. And one of the things we'll look at with that is, can we go with like in the jail cell area where currently the recorder's using is going to a rooftop unit and get rid of those consoles altogether. So that'll be part of that process we'll be evaluating for FY23. Let me get my improvement requests up, so we know where we're at there with that in a second. Flagpoles, I just got an updated, this is the improvement request for the flagpoles. I got an updated cost, and they've only gone up about $600 from the last estimate. We're looking at $6,800 for the poles and stuff with delivery, and the rest of it is going to be the lift and crane to be able to pull the old poles and set the new ones. Washer dryer, $1,500.
We're not actually, Chris, we're not seeing anything on the screen other than your additional products. I don't know if you think you're showing us something. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah,
we're not.
I'm sorry, my bad. Let me see if I can get the share back up again. That's not working here. Sorry.
Stella, you might have those as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't share.
Yep, I can share it too if it is not working.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I can't pull those files up. Sorry.
No problem. I appreciate the descriptive report that you've given. That's helpful of the high level and then all the way down to some of the small things that are pending too. So, and I appreciate your response to me as well in our emails back and forth. So,
you're welcome.
There they come.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. I was having a heck of a time. I still couldn't get it to go. Let's see where we're at here. Which one is this? Courthouse flagpoles. We discussed that. The issue with the flagpoles is twofold. One, they are bare aluminum. Whatever finish may have been on those flagpoles is long gone. And so what's happening is it starts to, you get the basically it's black rust that you get on aluminum that's causing the flags to be stained. And it, after we have a lot of rainy weather, it runs down the poles and there really isn't a whole lot we can do it. And then two of the poles, the top pulley assemblies, or the trucks they're called, are broken and they need to be replaced.
Do we know, I know that this was held up while we waited for RDG to come back with their ideas. Dawn, do we have an estimated time when we're going to have something from them, a written report, in some plans to look at from RDG?
You had indicated you would like that sometime earlier this week. I have not had time to reach back out to them, but I will before the end of this week to have them present us with a written report on their progress.
Right. You know, I'm happy to authorize money for the flagpoles, but I would like to make sure that it's all coordinated so that, Chris, we don't, I mean, I know you've been holding on this, but I don't want to put the flagpoles up and then discover that there's consensus that we're going to, I don't know, put something else there, right? Isn't that your concern as well?
That's my concern, but one of the benefits of the way these flagpoles are put in the ground is we could pull them out and reuse them if there is going to be a plaza of some kind or another location, and it's a matter of just backfilling the hole in the ground. It's not concrete. There's a corrugated metal tube, perforated metal tube that goes into the ground. You set the pole in, and then you pack, basically fill it with wet sand and pack it down, and that's what locks the pole in place. So it's not like it's concreted in where we'd have huge divots in the ground that we would have to get refilled and everything else with it.
Yeah, I think we'd want our flags and our flagpoles to look nice. So I would definitely support this, and sounds like you've got things figured out to move it forward. The only question I have is where you want to do it before July 1.
It's a good question. Do you want to do it before July 1, Chris?
I can get, there's a minimum 16-week lead time on the poles, so the sooner the better. But I mean, if we can get it done this summer would be ideal.
If we put it into a budget amendment, it would be authorized and we'd be able to get things ordered, I guess.
That would be ideal.
I would support that.
Can you bring
I would
this back,
second.
Stella? Yeah, can you bring it back as an amendment?
You could approve it as amendment now if you wanted to do that. If there is a 16-week lead time, we'd be honestly, by the time this is approved, getting close to being into July 1st anyway. So I just throwing that out there for Chris's consideration of when the timing would actually.
What would you two prefer? Amendment or fiscal year 22?
For me, it doesn't matter. I don't know if that question is to me, but that would be up to Chris.
I'd be fine with fiscal year 22. That wouldn't be a problem. I can get prepped
I'll
for
make
it.
a motion. I'll make a motion to approve 7,500s for new flagpoles for fiscal year 22.
I will second.
Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Chris, are you going to take action on this right away and not wait till July 1st?
No, I'll wait until we're a little bit closer to the, I don't have to, this company doesn't require any monies down like some companies do. I just got to get everything together, signed off and sent off to them, and then they can start the process. And I'll basically back it out to 16 weeks. So we won't have any billing or anything that will occur before July 1st.
It'd be great to see them installed for the 4th of July. That's the last comment I would make. So
I will. I will do everything we can.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Chris, who do we pay the $600 stackable? Who do we pay for our rag mop service right now? Who's our contractor?
It's Cintas Corporation. CIS.
Big one.
Yeah, it's one of the big companies out there. Yeah,
Is there a local option at all?
I just got notified the other day that there may be, and that's one of the things I'm going to look at before we move forward. But I just found out about this yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to do any other legwork on it. Most everybody is not local. They're big companies, Aramark, Cintas, that sort of thing. But this other company is just something I heard about yesterday that I got to do some more research on.
And where would these units be? I mean, the units we must already have water and electric that we need to run commercial washer dryer to wherever you're installing these.
Yeah, I have a spot down right in the boiler room. I have the new water heater to replace. I bought that a while back that we have to replace down there. Our old water heater is it's about 3/4 full of gravel. It sounds like when it's trying to warm up. So we're going to replace that, and that gives us room to put the washer and dryer right down there next to the deep sink down in the boiler room.
With no construction costs, right?
And a little bit of time on our part and a few nickel dime plumbing parts. That's about all it's going to be.
Other questions?
Harley, maybe this is for you. Do they have a washing machine and that services over at ELAC?
Yeah, there's a washer dryer upstairs, actually, a couple of them, I think.
Okay, and that generally works good as far as just having those available?
Yep.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. If the maintenance staff is interested in doing the wash and laundry, I think it makes sense to have the facilities.
We have two different numbers being used. This is a $1,500 request, and in your narrative, I thought I heard you say $2,200. How much money do you need, Chris, to get this done?
$1,500 covers the washer and dryer. I have some of the rag stock and the mop stock and other stuff that I purchased before we went into this contract. So there'd be some minor expenses across the next couple of months after that to get everything up. So I've got the power I need to maintain, but it's $1,500 is more than sufficient to cover what we need.
Does anyone
I
want to
would-
make,
I would make the motion to approve the 1,500 for the washer and dryer.
I will second that.
we have a motion and a second to approve the $1,500 washer and dryer expense. All in favor, sign aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Chris. What else do we have?
What's the next one, Stella?
Sorry, just catching up.
No, you're all right. I was trying to figure out which one it was. The UV lights for the ducting. The cost per system is about $325, and there's going to be some labor involved and some material fabrication on a couple of the ducts we're going to have done by a third party. But we've got we have 5 in the courthouse, 4 in the old jail. I think I had a total of 8 systems, 8 of them out there. So we have, between the old jail and the courthouse, the current ducted systems, we have 8 systems we need to install these in.
Should they be
So
installed in
what-
other locations other than just the courthouse? If this
I-
is the thing,
I would have, I don't know if we have the space in the ceiling and the ducting out at the West Campus. That's something that I need to look into. That's a new system. I wasn't ready to start basically punching holes and ducting and putting stuff in. And I've got to make sure I can get power to it. All these locations for these, I can get power to the UV lighting systems. It's a little bit harder with the systems that are installed at the West Campus. I'm going to have to do some additional research on that.
Okay, so the big question, it says viruses. What does the manufacturer say related to the coronavirus?
That's the main reason we went to this. They're saying that it kills SARS, which is the coronavirus, and the flu virus and all the other things there. It kills all the bacteria that go through there, and it kills mold spores. And we'll be using the 2 and 4 bulb systems, depending on the size of and the airflow in the ducting units and the ducted units. So we get more than the needed or the necessary amount of light time with the airflow.
Chris, is there somebody locally currently using these? I'm sorry to be ignorant of them, but I don't know them. Are they being used somewhere currently?
I've had them in my furnaces in the last 2 houses I've had, and it definitely makes a difference. All the studies are showing that they work. The CDC is recommending the UV light in general for cleaning, whether it's surface cleaning or sanitizing the air. The systems are out there. They've been out there for a long time. Like I said, I've been using them for 5 or 6 years now, personally. So.
Has someone made this as a recommendation?
Yeah, it was one of the things I've been staying up on the CDC information that's coming out, and they're the ones that are pushing the UV lighting it's significantly better than spraying everything around everywhere when it comes to sanitization. We're seeing out there industry-wide that people are using too much of these sanitizing and disinfecting agents, and those are causing some other problems just because of that use. It's PPE, it's personnel exposure, and that sort of thing that are becoming a problem with some of that. The stuff that we currently use in-house is a peroxide-based. It's not a bad thing. I wouldn't recommend drinking it, but if you did, it's not going to kill you. So that's basically where we're at with what we currently use for sanitization and disinfection.
If we installed these, would they change the way you do any of your cleaning?
Not really. Still the high touch areas and the constant touch, or the personal areas and stuff people can continue to have to do. As vaccinations occur and the numbers start to drop back, we could drop back on the high touch area cleaning. But this eliminates, if somebody's walking down a hallway on the first floor or in another area and start coughing, this stuff will, as it's moving the air around, will kill it as it's being pulled through. And then we're looking at some other UV lighting options with fans and other stuff in the areas that don't have that much ventilation to be able to do the same thing. Just, basically killing everything that's moving through the recirculating air.
What's your lead time on these, Chris?
I can, believe it or not, I can order these things from Amazon and have them here in days.
I don't know if I want to
All
believe
right,
that
well.
or not. Does that sound like,
Yeah.
is that the best research we got is Amazon?
No, I mean, there's other companies
Yeah.
that get them from, and as a matter of fact, one of the companies that was mentioned in one of my facilities magazines, Amazon is one of their primary distributor of that system. So that was just, one of the options that's out there to be able to utilize.
Well, I'm taking a deep breath because, so one, I'd like to believe that these would, kill the coronavirus and other things, and it only cost $7,500. And then I would say, well, why in the hell didn't we do it earlier, if that's the case? And then my second thought is things related to HVAC system has not worked very well since I've been on the board. It's been painful. So I've lost my faith. So walk me through this, or board members tell me where you want to go, because I'm perplexed.
Part of the reason it didn't get moved up on my list of even things to look at until probably the last 2.5 months with the CDC notifications and some of the other stuff that's out there saying that use UVC lighting for sanitization and disinfection. It's become one of the primary sources for cleaning like that. They're using it. They've been using it for the last couple of years in hospitals and surgeries and things like that. When they do the deep clean after a surgery, they wheel this machine in, set the timer on it, close the door, and walk away. We can't do that because we can't have the machine sitting there when people are around and running. So our next best bet is install it in ducted air systems and in areas where we know we have air movement to be able to kill what's there.
I'd really like to see you connected to somebody locally. I don't want to be, I'm sure we are not. I don't know who else is doing this, but I would like to see from some local team who's doing it and why and what, the cost doesn't match the benefit, if that makes sense. If it's a germ killer, I would expect it to cost a whole lot more than, under $1,000 per thing. And I'm sure it's my lack of education, but I'd like to see us work this up a little bit to raise my confidence that it's the way to go, Chris. And probably you can do that. We don't need to decide this today. And you can probably do that and, to bring it back to us in a time where we can be talking about, some more progress on projects. So not an idea killer on this, but I'd like to see it a little bit more robustly presented, maybe.
I would agree with that. Carly, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't understand it that great. Obviously ignorant to the UV light thing. I guess, you would install these, Chris, or is that somebody coming?
And certain of the systems we can install it in without a problem. Some of the others, like I said, I'm going to probably have to bring in a sheet metal contractor to make some modifications to ducting so we can install them. But it's a relatively inexpensive way to clean your air.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about it. I guess I'll leave it like that, because it sounds like maybe we'll start a trend.
No, I've got
on to the next one. That'll be simpler.
All right, what do we have next? So we're gonna hear back on the $7,500 improvement.
Yep.
This one I have to take ownership of. I pushed this man to get me something about HVAC. So Chris went out and got me something on HVAC. So why don't you give us any context you think we need to have, Chris, and help me understand what we're doing here.
Sure. When we did the original HVAC installation, we ended up with two major problems. One was noise from the units, and the other was we were getting some corrosion of the fins and the coils in them, and they were blowing some white powdery dust around, which is aluminum oxide, which is aluminum rust. We went back to the manufacturer, and their basic comments to us were is the aluminum oxide is our problem. It's an environmental thing. Whatever we're using in the building is causing it. The noise issue is, and Jay will attest to this, he sat through all these meetings and everything else we had during that time. Basically, Climate Master is saying they had all these, they've got these same units everywhere, and we're the only ones complaining about noise. So one of the things we did in the short-term fix to collect the aluminum oxide is we put filters in the discharge ducts on those units. And one of the things that did help is with some of the airflow noise, it cut it down. It's still white noise, and it's still enough to make it difficult to hear what's going on around you in the boardroom, especially if the unit's behind you in the boardroom and things like that, and in the courtrooms. So what this process would do here would be basically to put the same type of unit in that we have in the magistrate's courtroom, a ducted system, ducted through the ceiling. These units would be ceiling mounted vice in a mechanical room. And this would give us the same amount of heating or cooling that we would need, but with virtually no noise. And it would be in all the large areas, you know, the areas we know that are problems with those units, boardrooms, courtrooms, clerk of courts area, treasurers, audit and elections, which are large areas, HR's entire area in there, because HR budgeting and Dawn's office could all be done with one unit. Recorder's office, which is another area that they have some noise issues with. And excuse me, any place else that we can try and duct to give the additional airflow to an area. The courthouse is not conducive to putting in central systems like you would have in new construction. We've got 20-inch, 22-inch, 42-inch walls that we would have to try and cut through. And as soon as you start cutting through that type of structure, you run into issues with engineering and keeping the building stable. So what we're trying to do is minimize any of that and key on these, you know, these larger areas that have the problems. The number that I got was, you know, from one of my contractors was more of a budget placeholder than anything. That number could change up or down depending on what type of units we finally decide on, how far into this we want to go when it comes to how many places in the courthouse we want to do besides courtrooms and boardroom, and that sort of thing. He said it was a very short time frame to pull this together, so I know it's obviously missing nuts and bolts things here, but
sure,
it's not going to be.
I appreciate the budget. I appreciate the budget overview and having, you know, trying to give us vision. And I know obviously we'd scope it, we'd probably engineer it, we'd bid it, all those good things. We'd have plenty of review. I'll go back to my colleagues. I've lost the faith on.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Jay. I don't know if that's me or a you thing.
Lost him too.
We lost you, Jay. I think he's probably maybe calling back in or something. Chris, can I ask you about the warranty on the original system? I mean, all this
It was
predates.
a 1-year warranty on the equipment and labor, and then the compressors themselves have a 3 or 5-year warranty depending on which size unit it is.
And are you talking about the units that we currently have in the courthouse?
Yes.
Okay, so we bought a whole courthouse system with just a 1-year warranty on parts. Okay.
Yep. That's
All right.
with the exception of compressors. Yeah, compressors are usually, like I said, 3 or 5 years.
Right. Okay, well, that ship sailed.
What's the price of like one unit, Chris? I mean, you got 820,000 here. Obviously, that's a big bite. How much like for one unit?
Average cost, and I'm saying just an average cost, is going to be based on the size of the room and the heat load in that area. It's going to be about $25,000 to $35,000 roughly, plus installation.
Supervisor Wickham, are you back with us?
I am. How much
Super.
did you hear everything I said, or did it look like I cut out?
We
We lost you from the beginning, so your comments didn't happen, your last comments.
Okay, so I'll basically I repeated kind of what I said before. Is I've kind of lost faith in our ability internally to solve large scale HVAC problems. So I'm not very interested in going down the same path we did previously, just because I lack the faith and trust that we can execute well. And so that's just my current statement where I'm at. Doesn't mean you wouldn't budget this and then, find other resources to solve, but I'd almost just want to start over from scratch.
The suggestion I proposed to Supervisor McDonough was, we discussed back and forth, and I'd had some conversation with Auditor Delgado, is doing it as a design build, going out for a bid with some basic specs that would say, hey, this is what we have to do to meet the heating, cooling, and noise requirements. Build us a system, or build us systems. Then you would have a general contractor to deal with, and they would work with their engineering, their HVAC mechanical engineering firm to put together system or systems for the building. This is way out of my wheelhouse when it comes to that. When we engineered the first system, we brought MEP in, and it was a 1-for-1 unit replacement, and that, to say the least, bit us hard.
Right. Well, and let me just say, I appreciate you saying that, hey, this is beyond my wheelhouse or pay scale or whatever word you want to use. So, and I think we want to set a direction that's focused on finding out the problem and then figuring out together, using some experts, what are the steps forward. And I know that if we bring in a systems engineering firm, Shive Hattery or somebody from somewhere, we're talking about, I don't know, I mean, the number that's been kind of said to me, Chris, you probably have your own numbers on that, but it's probably $80,000 just to have somebody come through and start looking. And if we were going to that high level, I would want to be looking at lighting, and that's its own issue. Lighting, we got another crunch time coming down on us with lighting, with the bond requirements, and this will need to be, ultimately, all of this will need to be reset, where we can put the people together with you, Chris, and you're going to have names folks you want to have there too, and certainly Auditor Delgado should be in the room and on that. So, but we might need to do some kind of higher level right shortly after budget, maybe even the third or fourth week of this month, start pulling in some people to start identifying who might be on the problem solving team, so that we can help you, Chris, get to the good solution. During that time, that new Magistrates Courtroom is going to be used right away. They're bringing in jury trials, so it's going to be put to the immediate test of whether anybody can hear anyone. And I know the courts are, Judge Schubert looked at it, I don't know, 2 days ago, I don't know, with me at the very end of the day. So I think there's a lot of things we can be assessing And, you know, that little tiny system we got down there, let's hope that that serves its purpose well there. But so those are my thoughts. I'm certainly not going to approve this kind of funding today. Nobody expects that. But I think it lets us have this discussion about kind of problem solving some of our systems of, you know, at the highest overview. You know, what are you thinking? What would your response to that be, Chris?
Oh, I concur wholeheartedly. When you and Judge Schubert were down there, that system was running. Okay,
You're
the fan
kidding
was,
me.
power was running and everything else.
Wow. We
Yeah.
thought maybe nothing had been turned on yet.
No, it was running. It was running. So yeah, it does not, having a ducted system that's fully balanced and matched to the room with the right amount of heat load calculations makes all the difference in the world.
Who installed that one, Chris?
I'm sorry.
Who installed that one?
Geisler Brothers installed that. The general contractor was Tricon.
There any other comments or discussion or suggested way forward? We're approaching the 4 o'clock hour here.
I'd sit on this one, and then I'd ask ourselves the questions. What's the cost of the downfall if we don't do anything?
Well, if we do nothing, what we have right now, and you know this, Supervisor Wickham, is we have a court system that tells people when they seat them for a jury trial, they tell them that the heating and the air conditioning doesn't work. And so it's really, really cold or really, really hot. And so when you begin your session, you're going to want to dress in, and this is what we're telling jurors, dress in layers and be prepared to come back from lunch. And it's either going to be extraordinarily hot or cold, depending upon the time of the year. And it will slowly dissipate and you will be uncomfortable at the beginning and at the end of your service. That doesn't work. It's a courthouse. We have to have court systems work. You know, you can see on any given day, there's towels and such that are installed in various, I think I saw one most recently near Megan Bonnert's office. In the auditor's office, there's a towel hanging out there. So, I mean, Chris is aware, and I don't think Chris is pretending that it works. We don't have a warranty to rely on. We've done our best. We just need to get it to a higher level. But I don't have those answers, and so we need a little bit of time to figure that out. And we should probably maybe budget some money for. Of course, we could probably amend the budget as we go if we're looking at $75,000 bites at this, you know, to get it right, to get some high level look.
Yeah, I think we should do all those things. I will say, you know, either I have a poor memory or bad hearing, or in 7 years, I've never heard the comments you've just said. Nobody's ever raised that level to me on the heat, the cold, and the jury. So
yeah,
I'm not saying it hasn't occurred, but no one, it's never raised to that level. I've been doing this job not quite 7 years, 6 years.
Well, you know, the thing that I mean, I have an extreme hearing loss and everyone knows that. And so it's on my own personal observation, my own hearing observation that this doesn't work. And that at first I thought it was me, but it's not. So, you know, I've been asking people and inquiring about difficulties around the courthouse with this and, you know, that's what I'm hearing, that my comments were from, you know, they put on your coats and wear the layers. That was me reporting what Judge Schubert told me 2 days ago. And so let's just work on it. The cost of doing nothing is that we're going to be limping along without heating and cooling. And that's really not a place to be. We do have visitors to this courthouse and it's a gem. We've spent a lot of money making it beautiful and it matters to the community that we maintain it well. And, you know, it's job 101 for us. So, but I don't think we need to be at $1 million, you know, an $820,000 solution today. We've got to, you know, figure out what's the systemic problem, I guess. That's not my wheelhouse. I don't know. Let's find some partners to help us find the solutions.
I would be more inclined to take bites at it obviously I know it's a noise problem because I testified numerous times, and when it's sitting right behind you, you have a hard time hearing the questions being asked. But I would, like I said, be more inclined to, let's do one room at a time, kind of budget through it that way. Yeah, it may take us a few years to get it done, but obviously there's issues with it. I think we're all aware of that.
I'll continue my conversations with Kevin once we get past the more of the budget stuff. We can sit down a little bit and talk a little bit more about some of the local people that can hopefully point us in the right direction. There's people out there that have done this in other buildings in town, historic buildings or older buildings. So we have some corporate knowledge out there. We just got to find the right people to talk to come up with some options and ideas.
Agreed. So we'll pass on this and we'll start scheduling some greater detailed conversations. Is that a way forward?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Anything else?
I'll keep you all apprised as we move forward, that whatever discussions we have and what directions they're headed.
Well, Chris, I'm gonna learn in education, so you and I will work together on some things, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, continuing on, Stella, back to you.
Okay, so the last departmental presentation on the agenda today is the HR department. So Dawn, looks like you're ready to go. Yes.
It'll go there. All right. Did I unmute myself there? I'll try to be brief because I only have one budget improvement request that we discussed last year. So I had this slide last year as well, just gives a general roles and responsibilities of our department in addition to what we do administratively for the board. One of the biggest responsibilities my team has is the timekeeping. They ensure that employees are paid correctly, that they're not overpaid, that we're in compliance with union contracts and admin policy and FLSA. And I do want to give them a shout out this year for Tanya and Tracy, because they did step up and become cross-trained over with some of our deputy auditors' payroll responsibilities. She was on an extended leave, and so they stepped up and learned some of the payroll part of it, not the timekeeping part of it, and really kept that process moving smoothly in their absence. So I do want to give them a shout out. They learned a lot about the system. They were already what I would have called experts in their part of the system. I think they enjoyed that, and it was nice. Everybody likes to get a paycheck on time, and that is correct, and they allow us to get those. So we did do some training. We did this with the Fountain of Youth in Caprice Jones. We offered this out to our management team. We did have good participation in that. This is something that I'm going to keep as an option for continuing to introduce this to other employees in the county. I am also researching other options. There has been interest to have our frontline employees go through some diversity, equity, and inclusion training. This training that Caprice had was 2 hours a week for 4 weeks. And at this point, it was all on Zoom, unfortunately. So I'm looking at some options that when we get out of COVID a little bit more, that when we can have a little bit more in-person training, that we can find a program or maybe even tailor this program a little bit more for our frontline workers, where we're not going to be able to pull them out necessarily for 4 weeks at a time. One of the things that we have been doing really even since the beginning of COVID is stepping up our social media activities. There's a couple, I think, areas that we've been focusing on. One of them is sharing our good news stories. I think I've probably told everybody, all three of you supervisors, I don't think we do this enough, is we have a lot of good stories in Dubuque County, and we need to share those with everybody. So this one was an example of the Sunnycrest Auxiliary, their Christmas fundraising. As you can see, they reached out over 17,000 people. And so we really want to focus on that. For me, it's you know, it's a win-win, because I think it also helps with recruitment when they see, you know, these amazing residents, when they see these amazing workers. It helps. I think it can only help with recruiting as well. So we want to continue to tell our good news stories. This one is also, we're also using it to connecting more with the public. In conjunction with having or sending out a media release, we did do some postings regarding filling our vacancies on our boards or commissions. Previously, that was a very passive role that we took. We just posted it on our agenda. And so we did get out there. We had, you know, quite a couple of 4,000 people reached at the time that I had pulled this. So we believe this is yet another way to connect with the public and letting them know of what activities that the board is doing in other departments as well. And then the last one is announcing our job openings. We have been partnering with others. I know we have NICC that we've partnered with this year with our Sunnycrest positions, but we've also started using social media to get the word out that we have openings. We're a great place to work. And then always putting a link to that application to make it simple for applicants to find that, that website and to apply for our job. So we have been using it for that. One of the transitions we make, and are still, I think, tweaking out some of the bugs of this, but we have transitioned to the online agenda management system. Behind the scenes, a lot of it was, you didn't see a lot of the behind the scenes of how we put the agenda and the packets to go together before. It was kind of like how we, you know, making the sausage, you don't necessarily want to see it. So with the support of Auditor Dolan, we did work with IT to do a transition to civic clerk. I will tell you, for my purposes, it has been absolutely wonderful. I can search for things. I can easily upload things. Others within the county can also upload their system, upload all of their agenda items in here. It streamlines our process. It publishes our agenda online. And I know we're tweaking out some of those notices, but it really is, I think, a time saving for staff to be able to go to this new system. And we did have an upgrade in December, and I think that's where we found where there may have been a couple glitches in there. And so IT's been working with that. So we continue to move forward with that. We have really ramped up our online application system. When I arrived, we were all paper-based. And so this is a system that I and many other counties, I think 7 out of the other 8 or 10 top 10 counties use NeoGov. So we did receive over 6,000 applications since last February, when we really ramped up the use of this. I cannot even tell you how that compares, because I wasn't going to count paper applications to see what it was the year before. But obviously this is going to give us greater reach to candidates. They do not have to schlep downtown, pay parking, and fill out a paper application. They can easily reapply because it does save their application. So if they find multiple jobs they want to apply for, they can log in and really apply within a few minutes with updating there. So we're proud to be going more toward the paperless route. Another benefit of this is it does help us post with our partners. I mentioned before, we've been working with NICC with a lot of our Sunnycrest. So this is an easy way where we can push out a little blurb, put out the link to it, and they can post it on their systems to their alumni, to their students. for some of our jobs. So it does help with the postings of those. So some of the things talking about for this next, the FY22 activities, the first one is the request that I included in here. And I have actually we had discussed this last year. Cottingham and Butler had brought this, and it kind of died on the vine because of COVID. We got going into that and really didn't have another discussion with the board. And to be honest, it would not have been a good time to implement it because we did not have staff present. We didn't have a lot of Zoom going on in that time. But I do want to reintroduce implementing a long-term disability benefit. What this would do is this would complement our current sick leave benefit. So it would have a 90-day waiting period. And in that time, people would be able to use their sick leave. It would provide income protection of 60% of their income up to the $5,000 per month. So it's one of those, long-term disability has been around a long time. It's something that helps income protection if somebody becomes seriously injured or has a serious illness, but it is not meant to fully replace their income and encourage them not to try to get better and come back to work. And so this is at a minimum cost. This would provide for all of our full-time employees, and the annual cost would be about $25,000. And that would come out of the general SUP fund if that was allocated. We're going to continue on spreading out more of our training. Obviously, COVID did not help with any of that this year. And as I have been reaching out to department heads of how do we connect with your employees, there are some just departments where it's very difficult because their employees do not utilize Zoom. We obviously do not want to put dozens of people in a room because of social distancing. So we need to think of some creative ways for those that we cannot connect to with Zoom, or we just may have to continue to delay a little bit until the pandemic is under control and some of the restrictions and guidelines are lifted. We're going to continue our social media outreach. And again, that's not at a cost to us, and become more creative to get more followers again, because I think that helps with our recruiting. I think it shows in our boards and commissions number of applications this year that was beneficial to it, as well as the media release. And then Supervisor McDonough and I have been talking about a performance review program for those that are appointed. So I do want to really dig into this a little bit. I'm not asking for any funding. There are online systems that would help with this. I've utilized one in the past. I'm not asking for any funding for that. I think there's a lot of program development that needs to happen in the next year before we would ever need to go to any type of a automated online system of this. But it is something that we'll be focusing on for 2020. So that is all I have. And I did have to share. And Stella, was it in the packet? Where did I put it? The improvement plan.
Yes, I can find that.
There we go. Sorry, I think this is it. So this would be the improvement plan, and we would work with Cottingham and Butler and do this as a benefit for July 1st. We would get all of the employees enrolled in it. It would be at no cost to them. This would be in a 100% employer funded.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. I originally thought this was a good benefit to add, and the more I think about it, we've got a lot of employees that are in big vehicles, moving vehicles, and have very dangerous positions in both law and order and the sheriff's department, managing the jail, and obviously road and bridge as well. And not to discount other positions at Sunnycrest and conservation and, you know, just day-to-day activities that zoning does when they go out to sites. But this would give me a little more peace of mind, and I think a little more security for the family members and the individual employee at what I think is a reasonable cost for our entire employee base. So I'm supportive of this initiative.
I would be in support of that also.
Dawn, is it common that counties provide this? We already are questioned about the richness of our benefits.
I don't know about counties. I know a lot of the cities, when I looked at them in my old job, had these, and they had very similar sick leave benefits. So that's why the plan design of this is always crucial, because we don't want to have a long-term disability plan that starts on after 7 days, because we do have a very generous sick leave package. So, we would anticipate employees to utilize sick leave before they would be eligible for this. And it's at a 60% level, so it's not encouraging them to continue to be off. It does have that to protect their income for some time when they suffer these illnesses or injuries, but also has that encouragement to return to full duty as well if they can.
And I've had friends that, develop cancer or whatever, they're off for extended periods. I mean, this would cover that, right?
Yep, if they're off for more than 90 days, it would.
Yeah, okay.
Why wouldn't this be a negotiated benefit?
The only ones we would have to negotiate it with, and I would even have to look under code, would be the law enforcement, because they have, everybody else, all we have to negotiate is wages. We could use it as a negotiation one. I would need to check with Cottingham about how it would affect our pricing if we did not have the full complement of the full-time employees.
I think the sheriff's office is covered under state code already for long-term disability.
And this would actually, it coordinates that. It coordinates, any policy will coordinate with, so if they happen to go on Social Security, if they go on work comp, if they were to go out on disability under your IPERS, it would coordinate with that. So they're never going to get more than 100% of their income. Usually, and I'd have to dig a little deeper into this policy, it usually coordinates where they would get a minimum benefit under this plan of just 10% of their income.
Okay. And that kicks in.
You're not going to see somebody get 60% under this plan, 80% under their IPERS, they're always going to be coordinated together.
Okay. You said this doesn't kick in for 90 days though, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess I still wonder why we wouldn't negotiate this. Last year, we gave a benefit of a holiday, Martin Luther King holiday benefit to everybody. It's an additional paid holiday. I agreed with it. We voted for it. It happened. It's great. But it wasn't negotiated. And so, I don't know tons about negotiations, but it just seems like something should be part of the discussion, that they should want it too, right? So how do you build that part into it? My other questions is, was this addressed with department heads? Maybe the same kind of concept there of who else has coordination with other benefit programs, or does Anthony think it's a great thing? I'd like to build on that a little bit, or maybe you've already done that. And I'd want to know, is there an opportunity for that to go out, this benefit itself, to go out for RFP? Why is it going to Cottingham and Butler?
Cottingham and Butler, as our consultants, would go out and receive quotes for us. We give them our census and then they quote it for us. So we would get multiple quotes through them.
Because like English does our, I think they're the part of our property casualty. Would they be able to give us a quote for this?
I would have to reach out to them. I don't know, Stella, if this is a line of insurance that they provide.
I don't know that answer, Ann.
Okay. So I would want to make sure that we have local people who are other insurance vendors who want to do some type of group policy, that we can look at that. Otherwise, we're just using our vendor for health insurance, using them to use. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Supervisor McDonough, going back to your negotiation, I think we still could do that. We could, because we are open with 4 of our contracts, that we could use this as a negotiation, tool for that. They're going to want to have a desire to want it. But yes, we could do that. But if we did move forward with that, we would still either now, or we could do a budget request if we had some that elected to negotiate this in their contracts. We would need to offer that and have a dollar amount in the budget. So the $25,000 would be if all 350 full-time employees were to be covered under this plan. So I'm guessing it would be lower, but I would have to check, because when your census goes down, it may affect the rate that they charge for us.
But Dawn, back me up on some things, so just, you talked about we have some open contracts. My understanding related to benefits, we can only negotiate with law enforcement.
Under PERB, with all of the other ones who are not law enforcement, we're only required to negotiate wages or any other mutually agreed upon issues. So we can negotiate, but we as the county would have to agree to that. We're only required to negotiate wages. Everything else.
Exactly. So we don't have to.
This and we said we don't want to negotiate it.
You wouldn't, so you're not negotiating benefits, right?
No, we don't negotiate any health insurance with them. They receive what the non-bargaining gets. We've never had that discussion in negotiations since 2017 with them, both in my previous job and here.
I'm lost who them is and who's, there's different units, and I'm last to the story on this because Harley's lived it and Jay's done this a long time. So we couldn't bargain this with our unions because we're prohibited from doing that. That's not true.
No, we can negotiate anything that we both mutually agree upon. We are required by PERB to negotiate wages. Anything else we both have to agree upon. So say they wanted to bring a bonus program, some type of a bonus program to this. If we said, no, we don't want to even consider that, we are not required to negotiate that. We're not requiring in bad faith by not negotiating that. They have to be mutually agreed upon.
But so you could bring this up as the supervisors are willing to do this if you would want to negotiate for it.
Yeah.
Per se.
And they would have to see the value. Is it realistic to think that they're going to give up a percentage of GWI to have this benefit? Probably not.
I didn't say I wanted them to give anything up. I think you can negotiate to set the terms and conditions, right? So you can say, otherwise I think we do things and we give benefits, but are they even noticed? Is it come with a message? If it's not negotiated, when are they paying attention to this? That would be kind of my thought. Yeah, let's negotiate it. Then maybe the union can communicate that this was offered instead of it being that we paid $25,000 to provide everyone with this coverage. Who's going to tell that story? It just looks like more costs. And so it's like, thank you very much. I'll take another one, please. So if it's not negotiated, how do we know that it actually is reaching employees and having them say that they value it? Right?
That's fair.
I think it's a great idea, but I don't want to just write a check for this right now if there's not something that we should be communicating differently. And I think negotiation is a way to do that.
I mean, I think that's the term negotiation. I think, if one entity has all the power, which we do, short of the law enforcement, which is still protected by the state, it's not a negotiation. It's an offer. It's an employment offer. Here's what we offer. And so,
okay.
I think that term's overused. And then secondly, there's non-bargaining that aren't represented by a union. So, maybe the terms are off. Obviously, awareness, education, and value, you'd want to have those, permeated throughout the county of what they're getting for working for the county. But I don't see it as negotiation. I see it as a benefit to working at Dubuque County. In my past experiences, and I heard from Supervisor Potoff as well, we said it seems like it's a good benefit and we should offer it. But, if you have to build consensus for all the things, and I don't think we have to go to the unions to negotiate these types of things, we're not required. We just doled out 6.5% wage increases with, I don't know if you want to say that the comp board was negotiating on everybody's behalf, but this is a very, very small wage and very small benefit for, I think, covering people's safety. But the other thing, Supervisor McDonough, you heard from two supervisors right away with support, and then you drug us through a long conversation. So I'll go back to, I fully support it right now. Supervisor Potoff, do you still support it?
I still support it, yes.
I will make a motion to include the $25,000 allocation for fiscal year 22, make sure my glasses are right, for the long-term benefit program.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. I just would like to make sure that we understand that we are all expected to ask our individual questions, and I'm not dragging you through anything. This is part of building the budget. And that's the point of there being three of us, that we're going to have discussion and dialogue. So are there any further questions for Dawn? Because I do have some that were not covered by any
Well,
slides.
I have comment on your comment. So if we are 2/3 board, the math is very easy. Okay. So, when we get consensus by 2, we can belabor things and delay things. And the tactic is to side rail it. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think when the board views consensus, we can have discussion and dialogue, but for one member to purposely take it down another path, I think does not help our quorum.
I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm certainly not trying to diverge from the topic at hand. So, I guess you don't like that I ask questions, but let's go forward. Dawn, you and I have talked for a couple of years about an equity committee, and I don't see that happening. The health department has a committee they've created called Equity, and they want us to form a committee so that they can join with us.
Is this
what's happening?
Is this in addition to the EEO committee, or is this that one and developing that one more? Or that?
Do you think the EOC is an equity committee?
Yeah. I think that's part of its role. Because I guess I don't know enough about the health department one and what their mission is. I want to see what their mission is, their vision, what are their goals.
Right, but what
I'm not, sorry. Go ahead, Ann.
I was just gonna say, they don't have a purpose. Their purpose is to join with us if we have an equity committee. Okay. So everybody's waiting to have, I guess, not everybody, but where are we? Are we gonna talk about equity front and center? Are we gonna talk about DEI issues?
Yes, and I think we started that with the supervisor, or not the supervisors, the management team just this year. I think, it was a good start to it. I just haven't had time to build upon that at this moment.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ann. If you'd want to just give me a little background, or what are you referring to, Dawn? Or
is your question what the EOC is?
I'm assuming you're talking about the Emergency Operations Center, or are you talking about something Totally different.
No, this isn't our Equal Opportunity Commission. I actually have the packet here. It's been inactive for about 24 years, I think. And so we have recruited a member. I've met with him. Again, I'm not sure if that's what Supervisor McDonough is looking at, expanding that or creating something different with internal staff. I'm not quite sure. And then partnering with the Board of Health. Is that the understanding?
I guess I'm asking you in the budget time when we're talking about what you might plan for. What are we doing with equity? Do we have any plans for that? I know you talked about the Fountain of Youth maybe doing some things with other people, but is that the role we're gonna play in looking at equity issues in human resources?
No, I think that this is the right place to do it. I don't have a budget item for that. I don't have a budget number for that, no. And just to be honest, I just have not had time to develop through that.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Harley, do you have more questions you want to ask about that?
No, I was assuming that's what you were talking about, but it just kind of come out of the blue and I wasn't sure where, I didn't know where you're going with it, so, okay.
I'm good.
Do we have a spreadsheet showing us the overall budget items, her worksheet? I don't know that I had that.
Overall projects budget? Is that what you mean, Ann, or?
Well, the worksheets you've sent out for other departments,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a worksheet for HR?
I do. I'm sorry if that was not included in the ones I sent. I will get that out to all of you.
Okay, thank you. Stella, what's next?
Okay, so the last thing I had on the agenda was just a quick update for you on the Operation New View / HACAP merger. I put a memo into the packet and let's share that quickly. So this has been kind of an ongoing discussion for the last, I would say, maybe 2 years of Operation New View, which we were a party to under a 28E agreement. So as of October 1st, Operation New View has officially been merged into Hawkeye Area Community Action Program called HACAP. So that has happened and those documents have been filed with the Secretary of State. HACAP's legal counsel has indicated that all of the necessary legal unwinding of the entity has occurred. So we don't need any further action to dissolve that entity, but there is the matter of the financial unwinding still ongoing. So we've been talking about the fact that there will be some final debts of the organization, but those have been unknown truly as to what they were at this point. So there was a meeting last week with the 28E partners and HACAP management to discuss where that stands today. So right now, the independent audit of the final books of Operation New View is underway. They're doing all of that remotely due to COVID. And they anticipate that to be done in March, April. So I've indicated that by the end of April, they think that they should have the final audit done. The results of that will determine what the final debt is. So they're still working through the financial that I attached to the agenda to determine exactly which line item will be repaid or what can be forgiven. They've made a lot of progress and they think they're at a pretty good place and believe that they have a fairly solid number today. That number is $234,406.02. Of course, that can change based on the audit, but that's where they believe that we're sitting today. We also discussed, the 28E partners discussed that they had agreed upon a formula of how this debt would be satisfied, and it is 35% to Dubuque County, 35% to the city of Dubuque, and 15% each to Delaware and Jackson counties. So based on that, I added in here that I recommend adding 85,000 as a budget amendment. We believe that this will all be wrapped up by June 30th. So this could all be settled by the end of this fiscal year. I can also project on here just that debt analysis, so you can see what I'm referencing. So this was put together. We've seen a couple iterations of this. Excuse me. Just jumped up here. Of this from Operation New View. This is their fund balance analysis. So this is for the period
Can you
ending.
make that a little bigger, Stella,
Yep.
please? Thank you.
Yep. So it walks through net assets without donor restrictions. So these are all the different funds and what that 9/30/20 balance was. Then there's assets without donor restrictions, and then undesignated net asset deficit. So all of these line items will be walked through by the independent auditor and determined what that final number is during this audit. So at the very bottom of this spreadsheet, the very last number on here, they're saying this 234,406.02 is what they believe today will be the final debts that have to be satisfied.
Stella, thank you. There's a lot of stuff here. One of the questions I have is on the undesignated net asset deficit, and specifically fund number 019 admin. So the FAR balance of 930 to 534, 751. So is that a negative number? That means that fund is minus 534. Is that how you read that?
Net assets without donor restriction, net undesignated net asset deficit. Yes, I read that as a deficit.
And I read that because like equipment was a negative, which would be a positive in a deficit.
Yes.
So it's deficit. So it's 534. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the big one that stepped out at me. And I was complaining all the way through this process of why we're paying admin fees and other things. And here now we're done with all this, and that's the biggest bill was 534. When I said we needed to terminate the executive director and various things, but I'm very disappointed that that number is one of the largest ones.
And I am happy to reach back out to management at HACAP to get more information on that line item if you would like me to.
Sure, I think it's all water under the bridge.
I would agree. You know, when you look at
Decisions
context.
we should have made a year and a half ago or 2 years ago is why we
Right.
have this bill.
So context, Harley, that the month I was elected, so November of whatever, that was the month they couldn't make payroll. So that's all of these things are from that decisions that weren't made by me that were inherited. So this has all been stepped through by, you know, I'm a voting member on that board up until it ended completely voting no on all kinds of things. But this is where we are. This is the journey. And, you know, again, you do the best you can when you see the debts and the penalties for failure to do things in the 14s and the 2015 and 16 and so forth. So, you know, we can all say we woulda, shoulda, coulda, but the reality is that this is the final number, and it's not so far off the mark that isn't this kind of been bumping along? Is the number, Stella, for some many months likely to be this?
This is lower than I think they initially indicated that they thought the final debt would be, but part of what they've been clearing up are debts with Head Start. HACAP did assume the USDA loan on the building, so that's been removed as a debt at this point, I believe, or, you know, it's offset in here. So there's been a lot of progress, and I think it's come down from the initial estimates.
Hindsight's been 2020 my whole life. I don't know about everybody else, but as soon as I do something dumb, I know I did it, you know.
Well, they didn't learn as rapidly as you would have hoped. So, but we're in much better stead, and the organization that has taken it over is doing good things. So
I believe I had numerous initiatives and numerous suggestions. Almost every one of those was ignored, and they would have saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they were ignored repeatedly. And I repeatedly asked for the resignation of the board chair and the executive chair as well.
But
none of those were done. Right. I got laughed out of the room, amongst 20 other elected officials, and not one person stuck up for me. And that's bad government. It was bad government, and now we're going to pay for it.
Right, but the bad government was going on before Harley and I were elected. So it's all about what you want to put into perspective, and this is I think somebody said it's water under the bridge, and here we are, and thank God the number isn't $534,000, that we're down to, you know, something that we can absorb, and hopefully they'll reduce it a little bit even further. I just am thankful there's a final audit going to happen, and so I think that's probably going to be the clear watermark where we'll really see where everything lies.
So my recommendation at this point would be to budget $85,000 in the amendment. And then, of course, as we learn additional information, I would come back with updates.
Where would that money come from, Stella? Just curious.
Sure, it would be general basic.
Maybe from the grants department, where we make grants to people. In terms of if you were thinking about what you would spend it out of, its
I don't think we have a whole lot of wiggle room in it. They're going to tell us what we have to pay, so we might just as well get ready for it. Jay was around at the time. I'm not sure where to go with it, so I'll take Jay's lead.
I am not either. I would, I would wait for the review, but we're just budgeting, so that's why Stella brought it up, to prepare us in the future. But you said there's a final audit and review coming from, and who's that coming from?
The independent auditor was hired by HACAP, and I'm not sure. And do you know what?
No, it's a firm that they use.
So
fund analysis or something like that, I think, wasn't it?
I don't remember the name of it.
I think it's out of Cedar Rapids, honestly.
I was reading through it prior to this, so.
It's not the auditor. I don't believe that's done the work in the past. I think it's the auditor that HACAP has used.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they had done Operation New View audit last year or not.
Let's just put this to rest. So
Hopefully it's not the same auditor. They were a couple of years behind. That was part of the problem as well.
Right, we never paid the auditor apparently for years or something. I don't know. It's just been,
Yeah, my vantage point is let it sit, and we'll do a budget amendment until we get the final audit. That was my whole, last time. The books had never been, let me rephrase, not never. The books were always an issue, and then the audits were always late. I would want to see the final audit before I appropriate any funds.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I guess it's going to come out of this year's budget anyway, so we can amend it whenever we get it.
Absolutely. So I will, as I learn information, schedule future work sessions and bring the information back.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Stella.
Wonderful. So that was all I had on the agenda for today. We plan to be back together. You'll have a Monday morning regular board meeting and then a budget work session Monday afternoon at 1.
Looking for a motion to adjourn if there's nothing further.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion a second to adjourn till Monday. All in favor, sign aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.